This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, the chaos of the cyclone is not only bringing huge amounts of rain, but bountiful opportunities for our lions. For those of you that are a bit squeamish, this is going to be probably a little bit of a rough sighting in some ways because of the fact that the lions are feeding on not one, but two different wildebeest here on Djuma. It's absolutely insane how much they've eaten already, and we'll get into the entire story a little bit later. The exciting thing is, though, is that hopefully Ngala is going to be joining us and looking for lions of their own. Phinda hopefully will be out this afternoon too, and it seems as though we've got a hiatus in the rain, so all things are shaping up for this to be one of those epic afternoon safaris out here in Africa. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a scene of chaos. As you can see, the Talamati Pride have got not one but two wildebeest, one close to us and one further in the background. It was a pretty crazy event, which I'll tell you about because I was actually here when they killed both of them, which was madness. It kind of came out of nowhere. But my name is Tristan. On camera I've got Hippo, and we're coming to you live from the northeastern part of a very, very soggy South Africa. It has been raining cats and dogs. It really has come down. There's a whole bunch of things that we'll have to show you in terms of the dam overflowing heavily. You might even hear the water in the background, as well as then the lines. And actually, how this all kind of came about is a very cool story. But because we're coming to you guys live from South Africa, we would love to hear from you. So if you've got any questions or you've got any comments or anything and you want to chat to us, remember that you can ask away. You can do so using hashtag WildEarth on Twitter, at FC on YouTube, and then in the comment sections of the various other chat streams that we're on. Hopefully it's going to be a good afternoon. Like I say, we've got a bit of a hiatus in the rain, thankfully. At one point today it was raining at about 190 millimeters an hour, which is, to say that, heavy. So there's a lot of water, and the Djuma kind of management has been very, very kind and in allowing us to actually come out. The reserve is closed, but we came down to check the dam walls and the overflow at about 2:30 this afternoon, and Michelle, who is part of the lodge here at Djuma and the general manager, he said to me that lions had been spotted somewhere there, so let's go check the dam wall to see how it's doing with all the rain that we've had and see if there are in fact lions there. We came down, we were watching the water kind of flowing out of the dam because it's amazing to see how much is pushing through. And as we were doing that, these lions chased the wildebeest down the hill from the camp, and they came thundering past us, and we had multiple wildebeest running through the Pride. The Pride managed to grab two and then a third one, and the third one ran with lions on their back. Now I don't know if it was actually brought down because we've only got 8 members of the Pride here, and there's members that are all moving away from here, so they might have got a third one, but there's definitely 2. The carcass closest to us was an adult female, not even an hour and a half ago. You can see she's almost been eaten on one side, and the carcass furthest away was a sub-adult that was born last year, or the year before, maybe one of the two. Difficult to see when it was all going kind of pear-shaped for the wildebeest, but it was fascinating to watch. These lions were all lying in wait, and these kind of wildebeest made a fatal error in that they came down the hill rather than going back towards quarantine. And because they came down the hill, as they got to the dam and they saw how the dam was overflowing and the river was kind of raging, they turned parallel with the water, and all the lions were lying right there and managed to grab them. And like I said, it was almost 3 wildebeest in one spot, but they did manage to get 2 pretty quickly, and they've now sat and sort of devoured it. But amazing to see the kind of effectiveness of lions. The other part about it that was interesting is how the sub-adults were able to be the ones that grabbed the wildebeest. The females chased, but the sub-adults were the ones who grabbed these two animals, and then the females caught up with them and actually helped them bring them down. The sub-adult male particularly was pretty useful in catching this big cow that you saw here in front. It's just fascinating to me that in the space of an hour and a bit, considering these guys ate a waterbuck bull yesterday, that they have already demolished as much meat as they have. It just goes to show you how much lions eat, and particularly big prides. They go through meat like it's no tomorrow, and in cold conditions like this, staying warm is utilizing a lot of energy, and so they're going to be processing this meat out pretty quick. But this is a seriously good meal for these guys. One wildebeest is a good meal, but two is going to mean very fat, very happy, very full lions over the course of the next day. And just thankful that they did it right here, because this is a place where we can actually come to. Russ, it's amazing to see how much is eaten, but it's kind of one side of each carcass has been eaten. If you actually flip them over, you'd probably find they look pretty whole. So they are hungry, but yesterday we know, like I say, that they ate a waterbuck bull yesterday afternoon. So they weren't starving, that's for sure, but they definitely have packed away a fair amount. Initially, I wasn't 100% sure it was the Talamatis, because, it was kind of in the chaos of lions, and we know that the Nkuhuma is also pretty similar in terms of, there's one in this pride that also has amber eyes, there's one that also has a purple eye, and so I was just double checking, but it seems to be that it is the Talamatis. There's a couple of the young males that are in here, which we know are bigger than what the ones in the Djuma Pride are. But I don't know where all of them are, because even when the hunt was taking place, we only ever saw a maximum of 10 of them. So I don't know if some are stuck on the other side of the river. The Mulawati is raging at the moment, so I don't know if they're stuck on the other side, or if there's, just, like I say, another kill that they've made, and the pride is now separated across 3 different kills. I'm not sure. Epic way to start the afternoon, though, and like I say, we're lucky because we were going to just be on the dam cam. There wasn't going to be any drive this afternoon because of the rain that we've had. But where we are now means that it's not too bad down here road-wise, and we're not going to have a huge amount of vehicles coming through the sighting, so it's okay. Clint, is it weird for them to make 2 kills at once? No. Lions do it pretty regularly. I've seen much more than 2. There was a pride of lions down in the south of Singita and Londolozi called the Sparta Pride. And the one day they had, I can't even remember what the exact figure was, but it was, I think it was like 14 or 15 wildebeest that they had killed. In a massive storm, much like what we were having today, same story. But that was at night. But often you find them killing multiple things. The Birmingham boys, they used to often target buffalo, and we found the 5 male Birminghams once on 7 buffalo kills. I've had the 2 older evokers, not the 3 that we see here, the other 2. I've had them kill 7 buffalo in a night. So, these guys take any opportunity they can get. And in the chaos of a hunt, like what you saw earlier, when they were just chasing each other and chasing these wildebeest, what would have happened is as these wildebeest are running, they're clattering straight into lines. Like, they literally are running straight over the lines because they can't see them with the grass being as long as it is. And so, if 4 or 5 of them run into each other then, or into lines, they get killed. And like I say, a third one, I think, got away. I'm not sure. It wouldn't surprise me if maybe it was dragged down as well. But we'll spend the afternoon with them. It's going to be an interesting afternoon. See if the hyena clan arrives here. I'm sure they will. In the meantime, let's send you across to Tessa, so say good afternoon, and see how she goes with finding her lions at Ngala.
So I'm sitting in the beautiful and somehow still dry Timbavati riverbed in this particular section. And this is the Birmingham Lioness at her den site, where she has 3 little 5 to 6 week old cubs. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Tessa. I'm going to be your guide on safari this afternoon here at andBeyond and Ngala. Behind the camera we have Sebastian, and we're both very excited to hopefully show you some tiny little lion cubs. But if you have a look, she's chosen her den site incredibly well. She's actually in one of the buffalo thorn and spike thorn thickets along the river's edge. And you can see it's actually quite dense in there. And what she's doing is she's actually lying at the entrance to the den site at the moment. She is awake, she's listening. And every now and then we see her flicking her ears like that for flies or grooming her face. And so what we're doing is at the moment the cubs are coming in and out of the den site every few minutes. So we're waiting here patiently to see those little fuzzy heads popping out somewhere around their mother. So I only saw these cubs for the first time yesterday. It was a very quick view. And then they went back into the den site. But I'm really hoping now that it's nice and cool today, the rain has stopped for a little bit, that they might come out and be a little bit playful. So actually just up the river from where she is with her den site here, the water is actually flowing in the Timbavati River. And so we're hoping that that won't affect her too much here in the den site. Magnus, a lion would be called a sub-adult anywhere from around a year to 2.5 to 3 years, somewhere in that bracket. It would depend when they start to become independent. So I would say by the time they're 2.5 to 3 years old, they're then considered adult. But anywhere from maybe 10 months to a year, I'd say they are sub-adult. Before that, they would be cubs. And it actually changes line to line. The terminology doesn't change, but the time frame that it takes for them to become independent can change line to line. We've noticed the Birmingham sub-adults from this pride, which are ranged between 2 years and 3 years old now. All 8 of them have become incredibly independent recently, and they've moved off on their own from the pride. We haven't seen the pride trying to chase off the young males or anything like that. They've actually chosen to move off independently. And we do have them contact calling every now and then looking for the adults, but we haven't actually seen them with the adults of the Birmingham Pride for about a week now. Very interesting dynamics happening here with our lion prides at the moment. She heard something. Arlene, yes, I'm really hoping we get to see these new cubs today, and I'd be very excited for you to see them. It is a very special time to be able to sit with a lioness at her den and watch the little cubs as they grow and become more and more adventurous. And what would typically happen is when they come out of that den site, it's on her right-hand side, so towards her tail end, that dark green bush. They would come out from behind that bush, and then they'll typically go over to try and suckle, or they might go over to her face to be groomed or to bond with her. So I'm really hoping that's something that we get to see today. I was so happy to see them yesterday, even if it was just for 2 seconds. It's always so lovely to see new cubs. So what I'll do is I'm actually going to sit here for a few minutes and see if these cubs come out, but I think it would be very special if we do get to see them. And I'll send you back over to Tristan with his very hungry lions.
It's always nice when you get to see cubs. Cubs are such a cool part of watching these cats and prides and leopards and even cheetahs to a degree, you know, watching the trials and tribulations of mothers and how they raise their little ones is always a fascinating look into the cat sort of dynamics. Interestingly enough, though, the one lioness is calling at the moment. I wonder if maybe some of them crossed the riverbed and others were behind, and the river's now flooding and they're too scared to cross. We'll see if they are, because if they are, they'll come along the dam wall to come try and see and find a way across. They eventually will find one. Even though it is kind of raging, these lions would be strong enough None of them are small, so they should be able to all kind of get across fairly easily. This kind of weather, though, can be very, very detrimental to lionesses with small cubs. A lot of the time, as we've seen over the years, drainage lines are places where cubs are hidden and are kept for safety. And when you get these kind of flash floods like we're having at the moment, poor little cubs, they aren't able to survive this kind of weather. They often get washed away, or their den site gets flooded. They also can get a huge problem with getting wet and their temperature dropping too far, and dying from that. So, it's a dangerous time for any adult that's got little cubs. They have to have moved them already up into higher ground, which then brings its own set of problems because it exposes them to the likes of hyenas, other lions, various other kind of predators that could be out and about. And talking about hyenas, I'm actually very surprised that none of these guys have arrived. The distance from where we are to the hyena den is close enough that they should have heard it. These two wildebeest let out a fair amount of noise, unfortunately, when they were killed. And so, with the feeding and coupled with the groans of the wildebeest, I'm sure it will attract hyenas into this area. And there's 14 in the Talamatis, but I haven't seen all of them. Like I said, there was only 10 that we picked up, but I think there might be another kill somewhere, because a lot of the lions keep getting up from here and walking towards Tumbeta. So I don't know, maybe they're drinking at the pan there because they like the water that's in that pan. Or maybe there's another kill up there. Maybe they got something small. There was a wildebeest calf in this group. So maybe they grabbed that as well. Maybe they got an impala, because the impalas were in amongst the wildebeest. I don't know. But certainly we don't have all of the members here. At the moment I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 only in this area. 8, sorry. There's another one that's behind a bush a little bit further on. So there's only 8 here, and there was 10 when we had them, when they first made the kill. There was 10 of them. So I don't know where all the rest are. They may be, like I say, on another kill. Maybe they stuck on the other side of the river. Where they made the waterbuck kill last night was on the other side of the Mulawati. So they would have had to have crossed that at some point. I mean, they could have done it last night, but I don't know. Maybe they did it during the course of the morning, because they weren't here this morning, and we panned around this whole area this morning. There was no sign of any lions anywhere near here. So they've come during the day to this area. All right, while we sit here and enjoy the lions on the kill, Steve is in his little room on the dam cam, so he'll be able to tell you all about the things that are happening behind us where we can't see with our rain roof.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Dam Cam Operation Flight Control Center, where my name is indeed Steve Falconbridge, and we are zooming in and out and having some fun here with the Dam Cam. And of course, many of you might be wondering, why are we not showing the lion kill, the wildebeest kill, with the Dam Cam? Well, first of all, the lions have chosen the only real bushes in and around the Dam Cam to inconveniently make their meal. So we're going to be doing some birding this afternoon. I'll be able to show you after we look at this Birchill's starling. The very, very overcast sky, bit of sun trying to creep through, but we'll show you where Tristan's parked, just south of the dam. There he is, bottom of the screen. And the lions are behind these bushes, sort of the bottom middle of the screen. So those are the bushes that they chose to use. So 2 bushes that are obscuring. So maybe they're just trying to have a quiet meal this afternoon without any interference. There's still a lot of weather coming. You can see the coloration. That looked like a fish eagle that flew past, but I don't think it was. You can see, look at that front pulling through there. I would be surprised if Tristan's out there for very long. He might be there for some time, but it is hard to say. Look at that weather pulling through. It's coming in waves and waves and waves. So I think he should enjoy it while he can. And he's got the best view of the lions. So from the dam cam, we're really not able to provide you with sensational visuals. Look at this sky. Thandi, what bird would I like to see this afternoon? Well, Thandi, I'd like to see something new. That would be quite something. Now, remember this morning, Tristan was showing you the overlay there. So I'd like to find any new bird, to be honest, Thandi, anything we don't normally see. Now, this is one of the overflows, right there in the middle of the screen, right in the middle. That's the overflow on the left side of the dam. And then the other overflow, which I don't think we'll be able to see. The Mawati is pumping, everybody. We've been sent some images of the Mawati down at Gowrie, Main, and I don't think you get a car through there. It would probably be about waist height. So the water here must be flowing out quite rapidly. And Tristan showed me a video. He can probably show it to you. I'm not sure if he's got it with him. But that's how he's probably told you the whole story. It is pumping out there. So all of the tracks and all of the debris and all the things in the river are going to change once again. And it's going to be some time until we're able to access the river once again. The dam walls will be out of access. The roads are going to be closed for now. There's been given special permission to just drive down to the dam. It's not very far, so there are some very easy accesses down there, which seems to be the best bet for now. Rosalind, how many birds are there in Djuma? Well, depending on the season, we can get anywhere from about 330 to about 360 birds. There are 460 or 480 in total in the Greater Kruger National Park, of which quite a few of them occur here, including this special fellow here. So everybody, I just glanced over my shoulder, and we have had 99 mils of rain, 99.6 mils of rain since the rain started this morning. Oh, wow, there's actually two birds there, 3 in frame. I'm just going to focus on these two, the white-faced whistling ducks, which are quite a common occurrence here, as well as the much more camouflaged water thickenee that you find just below him there. He's a little bit blended into the ground, which is exactly what they like to do. They like to blend in, and they're often seen and not as often, they're often heard and not often seen. As you can see, where the white-faced whistling duck gets his name. They also do a very nice. That is my rendition of the white-faced whistling duck. But everybody is trying to preen themselves and reapply some oil, no doubt after 100 mils of rain. Absolutely everything is saturated and wet.
So I am sitting here with one of the Birmingham Lionesses still at her den site. She's had a little bit of a groom and now she's put her head down having a bit of a snooze, a cat nap. But we've just noticed there's a lot of beautiful sounds at the moment, and what we're really listening for is maybe the sound of those cubs. So I want you to just appreciate all the noise around us after this rain. There's a lot of birds and a lot of insects that are active. Have a listen, it's beautiful. You can hear quite a lot of bubbling casinos, woodland kingfishers. brown-headed parrots as well. Seems like a lot of the birds in particular are quite chirpy after the rain that we've had recently. And I think that's because there's a lot of insects active, and that's some of the main diet at the moment. But I'm definitely going to be sitting here a while longer to see what happens.
As you can see, the lions are still feasting, and the most amazing part about all of this is that they killed these two wildebeest right next to the road. Given the conditions that we're in, if they did this another 50 meters from us, we would have had no chance of being able to see these cats. But the fact that they did it right here is crazy. And where we're sitting right now, so where I am, is where we were when we were checking the water overflowing in the dam when they killed these guys. So they literally brought these two wildebeest down the distance that we're at, which is 10 meters. And the incredible part about these hunts, you always sit here, and it's a very roller coaster type of emotion that you go through, because one is you're watching animals in extreme panic and ultimately death, which is always something that you've got to appreciate, and you've got to understand that can potentially be, quite traumatic for many people out there, and it is something that you've always got to keep in the back of your mind, is that an animal kind of lost its life. In fact, two in this case. But the other part of it is the kind of the hunting prowess of the lions, and the whole combination of all these emotions that goes through it is fascinating to watch. But the thing that always gets me about these hunts is never really the visual aspect of it is often overwhelming. It goes by so quickly, but it feels like it lasts forever. But it's the sound of these hunts that are, for me, always incredible. When these two wildebeest hit these lions here, it sounded like if somebody has taken, you can imagine a big bag, and that's very heavy. So imagine a big bag of flour or a big bag of potatoes or something like that, and thrown it off a balcony, and that thud when it hits the ground, that's the thud that you hear when these wildebeest clatter into these lions. It's literally the lions jump, head into these wildebeest, and I'd imagine it's much like the force in a rugby game, essentially, or an American football game, where they kind of just clatter into each other, and then one just tries to hold on, and luckily in this case they managed to hold two rather than just the one or none, and so it's the most insane sound to hear. And then obviously you get what goes on after that, but it doesn't come without its risks for the lions too. So while the wildebeest have died and all of the sound and all these things, you'll see there's one lioness here that's got a nasty wound from one of the horns, because she actually got thrown off by one of these wildebeest behind us. So the initial kind of hunt took place right where the dam cam is, and then it shifted a little bit. Sunflower, how often do these lions eat? Well, in this case, they've eaten, this is their third kill in 24 hours. But if we average all their kills out over a long period of time, it generally works out to every 3 days. Look at the ones in the back. He's stalking the one coming forward. One of the young males is stalking one of the older lionesses coming through. Little friendly greeting that's coming. Hi guys, everybody just saying hello to one another, making sure they all know who's who. Particularly in an area like this where lions potentially haven't spent a lot of time in the past, they're always a bit wary when other lions approach. So they just watch, and then once they see it's one of their members, then there's often a playful response and a bit of grooming that takes place, and social bonding. After they've eaten, they'll also start to come and clean themselves and make sure that everybody is looking a lot better than what they do now, because now they're covered in mud and blood and all kinds of things. And eventually they kind of, sort themselves out and get themselves into a bit better condition than what they're looking like right now. But the lioness that's got the injury is the one that's lying at the back of this grouping of four that's feeding closest to us. So it's the fourth lioness feeding, not that one, the one down from it. and then on the left side, so it's the last lioness in that chain of feeding. She's the one that's got a very nasty gash under her leg. And like I said, what happened was she got thrown behind us, and the wildebeest came and she ran into it, and as she ran, the wildebeest dropped its head and its horn hooked her in the armpit and just ripped up, and she let go, and then they landed here. It's exactly this wildebeest that's being eaten now was the one that managed to somehow kind of escape the first lioness, but not the rest. Shame. The wildebeest just, they just choked themselves out, unfortunately, with the dam, because they had to turn in this direction, and everybody was just lying here in wait. And once that happened, that was the end of that. There was no chance for them. Once you run into 10 lions as a wildebeest herd of 10, one of you, unfortunately, is going to get caught and end up being sort of food for the lions. What a crazy way to kind of spend their afternoon. Was, here we are, where have you come from? All the youngsters, they've just arrived. You can see they haven't eaten. Obviously one of the lionesses went to fetch them. You see her, she's got a big nick on her cheek, the one that's arriving. So she was here when the kills were made. Now listen to the noise as they all come in. So Hannah, in this case, the weather does help them for two reasons. One is what's happened is the grass has become very, very wet, very, very long, and therefore good hiding places with the weather we've had previously. But when the rain pulls in like this and it's dark and it's thundering, because we had thunder just during this rain period that we had now, and there's lots of rain falling, it deadens the sound for the wildebeest and for the impalas. They can't hear what's going on, and the wind is swirling all the time. So scent is now no longer a valid part. They can't pick up a direction. Also, the scent is killed by the rain, and so it becomes really difficult for these wildebeest to hear. Then when they're running, it's a lot slippery. Well, it's more slippery than it was when it's dry, and so they often can fall. You see that a lot with giraffe and buffalo. They often slip when trying to get away from these bigger predators. Their body weight is focused into such a narrow point with the hoof structure that it gives way pretty quickly, whereas lions, or cats in general, quite broad feet that spread the weight. So, a lot of it is stuff that we don't really... We always kind of draw conclusions later, but in terms of behavioral changes, it can happen before the weather arrives. So I have seen hippos leaving rivers and going into dams that are higher up on slopes just before rivers flood. Things like lions, leopards, these kinds of things, not so much. They generally are pretty happy to just carry on with their normal kind of day-to-day life. They just move around and avoid the rain as it comes. When patches of rain come, they go in underneath little bushes and try and get out of it as much as possible. There's not huge amount of behavioral changes from some animals, but other animals, yes, there is. It's fascinating to think that some of these little sub-adults may never have heard a river run when you think about it. So even like Tundi's cub, for example, won't know what running rivers sound like. Because we don't have a permanent flowing source here, and now that the rivers are actually flowing, the Muluwanini and Mulawati, and I hope Tundi's cub is alright because he was in the Muluwanini yesterday, which will have been now completely flooded, so hopefully he went out. He's big enough and strong enough to climb a tree and get out of it, so hopefully he did. But yeah, some of them won't know what flowing water is, and there's actually, the reason why I say that is because there's one little sub-adult from the Talamati Pride that is besotted with the running water that's next to us. She's like walked down there and she's just kind of staring at the water flowing past her. I think the movement of it is attracting attention to her. But you see how also the new lions, how quickly they start feeding. So you can tell why these wildebeest disappear so fast. Everybody was feeding fairly gently and slowly, but the new arrivals, they came in pretty quickly, and it's a much more ferocious, frenzied feed as they arrive here because they're hungry. They haven't been at the carcass yet, and that's what triggers that little bit of aggression that's now happening. Is as the meat is getting less and they're on top of each other and they're trying to bite at the same place, it causes the growling and grumbling to happen. If there wasn't 2 kills and there was only 1 kill and everybody was on the same kill, there would be a lot more intensity in the vocalizing and fighting with them. But you can see that female, she got almost looks like she's just been in a boxing match. She's got a proper little gash on her cheek. Hunting large animals is no joke. They often do get clattered a little bit with horns and hooves. The edges of the hooves are quite sharp as well. When that animal kicks, it can often get them in the face and or in the sort of chest area, leg area, and leave a big gash. And actually, these lions are eating. It's ridiculous how much they are packing down. Considering, like I say, that they were on a kill yesterday, it's not like they were hungry. I mean, they literally ate yesterday. But it goes to show you how big prides like this need a lot of food. A waterbuck bull, a big wildebeest cow, and a sub-adult wildebeest, you're probably looking at, near on 500 kilograms of food between these, maybe a little bit less than that. Let's call it 400 kilograms of food, 800 pounds of food that they have packed away in 24 hours between the 14 Pride members. And their evoker's not with them. Now imagine if the evoker's with them, how quickly they go through meat. So big prides often, they need to hunt a lot, and that's why we see in the Sabi Sands these splits that take place, because they just cannot sustain the hunting pressure when the pride is big, especially when the sub-adults are growing. These sub-adults are getting large now. They're starting to really kind of eat a lot, and the pride is then having to kill more and more and more just to keep everybody well fed, and eventually that pressure and the lack of prey animals, because we don't see a lot of wildebeest, we don't see a lot of zebra here, and the buffalo are quite transient, big herds that roll through every now and then. It means that these guys struggle to find food all the time. And that means that these splits start to take place as moms try and find ways to feed their new cubs, or the sub-adults start to feel like they're not getting enough and they start to push off on their own to try and find food. All right, so we're going to stay with them. There's, like I said, nowhere else we can go. Plus, it's just interesting to watch them. In the meantime, let's send you across to Tess, to her Lioness, and see if those little cubbies are going to come out.
Tristan lucky that those cubs have come to join him at the carcass. I'm wishing more than anything that these 3 little cubs will come out here at andBeyond and Ngala, the den site for the Birmingham Lioness. So at the moment, she's actually just lay flat on her side. She looks like she's eaten. When she started moving, I could see her belly was very rounded, which is good. It means she's got a lot of nutrients to turn into milk for those cubs, which is very important at this stage, because they will still need that milk for another 5 months or so. And it's actually very interesting. I know Tristan was talking about animal behavior changing as storms start coming in, and I think the animals definitely know that they're coming in long before we do, because you do start noticing behavioral changes in the animals quite a bit before we would have guessed that there is a storm coming in. And it can be something as small as leopard tortoises being more frequent because they know there might be rain coming, or even things like barn swallows and bee eaters that fly low over the riverbeds in those low pressure cells that form before a storm. But with animals like this Birmingham Lioness, what we noticed with her is she hadn't been at the den site very frequently before the storm was due to hit. And in the last 2 days before the storm, she has been here consistently. And I think that's because she knows that not only might the cubs get wet, they might get cold, and she needs to warm them up, but if the river does start to flow, she'll need to be able to move them to a new den site very quickly. And so she's here for that entire process. And we had a lot of rain. We had around 80 millimeters in just a few hours. We're expecting another 80 millimeters from the next hour or so onwards. And so it's very important for her to be here. But even other animals like elephants and buffaloes, you know, we've seen buffaloes starting to bed down in clearings and stay there for the entire day before a storm hits, which is quite uncharacteristic. Normally they'd be moving around feeding, and for them to just be lying down is quite unusual. So this lioness will introduce her cubs to the pride only when they are around 2 to 3 months old. And that's because when they are so young, they are very vulnerable. And so what might happen is, if she does move them towards the pride and say there is a kill or something like that, or even one of the Ross males is in a bad mood and he swats at a cub, he might injure it. And especially so even with the sub-adult lions, because they're at the stage where they're experimenting, they're becoming independent, and they're quite strong, they can be quite moody. And so she wants to keep them safe from the pride for quite long before she wants to introduce them. Even when there are carcasses and things, she won't start introducing them until a few months old. They'll only start to eat meat at around 2 to 3 months anyway. So until then, there's no need for her to be moving them to carcasses or to where the pride is. She'll keep them safely tucked away in a den site like this one. And then every now and then she'll move to a new den site, so the scent of her and the cubs doesn't build up in one area for too long, that the hyenas might be able to follow. So you can see that the storm is definitely still rolling in for us here. The sky is very dark. Daniel, lionesses will give birth on their own and not with the pride to keep those cubs safe. So the pride might attract other predators like hyenas or even other prides of lions, other males. And so if she was with the pride when she gave birth, not only would she be vulnerable to those predators, but the cubs would be as well. And you never know what the reaction might be of other lions in the pride. For example, you know, the young Birmingham male that's around 4 years old now, he's not their father, but he's getting to the stage where he's almost ready to take over a pride and he hasn't left. So if she brings her cubs back to the pride, or even has them in the safety of the pride, and he decides it's time to take over the pride, there's nothing stopping him from killing those cubs, even though this is actually one of his relatives. If he's getting to that stage where his testosterone is building up, his strength is building up, it might be quite a dangerous situation. So instead, she moves off to the side, she stays somewhere safe, and in that time she's hoping that by being on her own, no other predators will be attracted to that scent of the pride, the sounds of the pride. And also she won't need to move them. The pride will keep moving, they'll keep wanting to look for food, moving to new areas of their territory. And the cubs can't do that. They're still so young that they can't move on their own, and so she would actually need to carry them. And it would be incredibly taxing on her energy-wise to carry one cub from one side to another and then come all the way back and fetch the other two. So for her, it's definitely much safer to be on her own in the meantime. So I'm going to sit here for a while longer, and hopefully these little cubs make an appearance. If they do, I will show them to you as soon as I can. But in the meantime, I'll send you over to the dam cam with Steve.
Thanks, Tessa. Well, I'm quite excited myself. I've got the YouTube on at the same time, watching the potential new cubs as well. So I'm quite excited to see them. It's been over a year since I last saw a little lion cub. So wouldn't that be wonderful? But from this morning, everybody, you can clearly see, if you were watching this morning, the hippos are hanging out over here now, which is indication that the watering hole itself has gotten deeper. The area towards the dam wall would be deeper, and it would get shallower and shallower towards this end. That goes to show you they've moved all the way from close to the dam wall this morning, about sort of middle of picture there we had them, and now the water level has risen to such a degree that they now find themselves all the way back in the back third. Remember, hippos can't actually swim, believe it or not. They just stand there on the bottom. They can run along the floor, but only for as long as their breath can hold them there for. So we might see some interesting movements of hippos over the next little while. Water changes the dynamics of the pans and the dams, and what it does is increases the territory, makes more territory available. So you might have some localized movements of dispersing bulls that might find a better patch somewhere nearby. Hello Kylie, age 4. You want to know if the Egyptian geese migrate all the way from Egypt? Well, Kylie, they're actually very localized Egyptian geese. The reason they're called Egyptian geese is because they were named for the first time, probably by naturalists who visited Egypt. The same as the Nile crocodile occurs throughout Africa. We had some Egyptian geese feeding over here earlier. Same as the Nile crocodile is also not only occurring in the Nile, it occurs throughout Africa. It was named because of the area it was found in. So, for example, if that Egyptian goose was found in the Mawati first by naturalists, they might have named it the Mawati goose or the Djuma goose, for example. But it was probably named quite some time ago, and it's actually in the scientific name. The name Egyptian is in the name, and excuse me, I've got something going on with my ears today. Sounds like, oh, we've got a bird in the tree. So we have Egyptian geese all over the African continent. And yes, there we go. Look at that beautiful fellow. There is a guy that does indeed migrate from northern Africa, central northern, the woodland kingfisher. You can hear him calling all the time at the moment. Such beautiful coloration. Sorry about my focusing skills. It's only my second time on these controls, and Tristan took over halfway through this morning, so I didn't get to practice that much, so do forgive me, all the zoomies out there. You have a fine job. This is lots of fun, actually, moving around the camera. And there, this beautiful bird is sitting doing what we call preparing for some perch or plunge diving, where it sees food on the ground. Now that focus happened all on its own. That had nothing to do with me. And then it'll drop down onto the food that moves, and then very likely return to a similar sort of perch. Oh, off it goes. Well, just as this carnivorous insect-eating bird flies off, we're going to send you back over to the true carnivores of the African wilderness.
Well, it sounds like Steve is getting quite in depth in the FC, old FC we'll call it, while watching the dam cam. As you can see, though, there's still feasting going on. For those of you that are probably a little bit sensitive, it's probably not the greatest sighting. I mean, I know there's a whole big rib cage that's exposed there, but it is part of nature as much as it is sad for the wildebeest, and as much as it can be grotesque for some to watch lions feeding. It is a fascinating insight into their behavior and how they go about their business. Now, what they get up to, how they feed, the dynamics when they feed, all of these things are pretty interesting. So for those of you that are a little bit sort of queasy, maybe look away, because there's a really kind of cool, it's a cool shot because it's raw and it instigates a lot of emotion in people, but it's the eyes of the lioness peering through the ribs. Every now and then she just sits in a way that her eyes just come straight through, and it's kind of framed and silhouetted by these red meaty ribs. and then these orange piercing eyes that are behind it. It's quite a kind of stark contrast. So there you go, see when she puts her head there, so each eye kind of shines through those ribs that have been eaten. You can see how efficient they are at actually cleaning the ribs. You would think that they would struggle to kind of get their teeth in there, but those between the tongue there and those little sort of sharp incisors, they're able to get and pull at those bits, and they actually effectively clean up those ribs pretty quickly. They're able to kind of get them down to where they pretty much just bone. There's not really much that will be left other than the bones themselves. Amazing efficiency at eating. It's an entire half of wildebeest that's been consumed in an hour. Well, 2 entire halves of wildebeest that's consumed in an hour. And I'm sure there's a third kill. There's way too many lions going away and coming back dirtier than what they came down, covered in blood and mud and stomach contents. So I think they've got another one somewhere deep in the block that we just can't see at the moment. It's pretty amazing when you actually think about that. If they do have another one, 3 kills in the space of one hunt is like hitting the jackpot for these lions. It's a stellar amount of food that they're going to get, and I'm so glad the one with the missing tip to the tail has arrived. So she's at the back, kind of standing over and eating the carcass by herself. She was quite clever. She learned pretty quickly that this particular meal was all on its own, and there was no need to go and fight with any others to go and have as much as you want, and is now just having a good feed all by herself. You can see a little stumpy tail that's missing the tip to it. It's quite easy to recognize her. She's a very kind of prominent lioness within the group. No, Margaret, they're going to stay here until this is completely done. Even if they're full, then they just go and they rest. And what you'll find with 14 lions is one will be full, one won't, one will go rest, one will eat. And they just kind of take turns. And eventually, over the course of the night, they will destroy all of this. There'll be nothing left here tomorrow morning. By the end of our game drive tomorrow morning, I reckon you'll find that there'll be scraps. So that's also if they don't get challenged by hyenas. So if you get 10, 12 hyenas arriving here, could be an interesting sort of showdown between them, and they might feel like, well, we've eaten enough, we don't actually need to eat more, don't want to fight with these guys, and sometimes they'll just abandon the scraps to the hyenas. But I expect them just to carry on feeding through the night until tomorrow morning. Find them just lying up here fat and full. It's wet, there's no real need for them to move. They've got food, they don't have to worry. Two of them have now latched on to one leg. There's 2 carcasses, but we're now going to fight over one leg. You can see the one lioness stretching over into the other one's area in the middle there by the ribs. Lover because the vultures are half drowned at this stage. The amount of rain that we've received, and recently as well, not long ago, means that all the vultures are sitting on trees completely soaked. Their wings are far too wet for them to be able to fly. They need to sit now and dry, so they'll be sitting with their wings out, drying them. Once those wings have dried a little bit, then they'll start to look around. But there's also no thermals to speak of. Without the sun's energy, it becomes very difficult for vultures because they're not able to actually ride thermals and be able to get high enough to start spotting things. You might find tomorrow morning, if there's a bit of sun, we'll get them, but there's big dark clouds that are rolling in now. We're going to get another wave of rain shortly. It's not going to be much longer until we get a huge amount coming back at us. When we had the forecast for the rain, tonight was supposed to be the most amount of rain. So during today was a lot, but the nighttime was supposed to be the kind of intense part about it. So we're still going to get more. And with that means that the vultures probably are not going to arrive here. What might arrive is hyenas and maybe the evoker male. Those would be the 2 that I would expect to make their way into this area to come and join these guys and to kind of have some sort of interaction with the Talamati Pride. The vultures, I don't think we're going to see any. If this had been a bright sunny day, we would have had vultures all over here already. But because of the weather, we're not seeing them at all. You were asking just now what happens when they are full and don't want to eat anymore. We've got 2 lions to our left that are passed out next to us. So they're going to probably just have a good nap, and you'll find that the rest will start to do the same thing. Jojo, yes, they eat everything. I mean, you can see there's not much left there. If you look to the left of that one lioness, you'll see, so to the left of her tail, just go a little bit more left for me and Paul, a little bit more. There's a bit of some sort of kind of internal organ. I can't see what it is. I mean, it's just a clump in there. It could be a bit of lung or a bit of heart or something like that. But generally, they eat those internal organs pretty quickly. The kidneys, liver, heart are some of the most nutritious parts of an animal, and so lions quickly try and get to those. There's often quite a lot of fighting that goes on over those parts of the meal. They get a lot of nutrients from that, so they are targeted pretty fast. Things like the stomach lining is eaten. So if you look in the foreground of the carcass itself, you'll see the grass is flattened, but then there's almost looks like a paste that is strewn across the top of it. Now that is all the rumen from the wildebeest's stomach. So what's happened is as they've been eating, they've taken the stomach and they've eaten the lining of the stomach and the intestines and shaken it, and that's all the grass that was inside the stomach is now spread across that area. So not really much goes to waste, and then once they've finished, hyenas will come in and pretty much clean this up. The only thing we will find here, I reckon, once this is all done, will be the 2 skulls, and even then the hyenas might carry those off towards the den as well. But we'll sit here and be patient. Like I say, we've got nowhere else to go, and hopefully we're going to get some interaction with hyenas as the sun starts to go down on another day.
For the month of January 2021, we are offering a chance to win a unique WildEarth expedition to the magnificent Tswalu Kalahari. From the ancient Kortai's Koranenberg Mountains to the southern Kalahari's red sand dunes, Tswalu offers what travelers crave most: space and time. The winner will explore this landscape in a vehicle, on foot, or on horseback, with a chance to go behind the scenes with WildEarth and of course meet the meerkats. The prize includes a 3-night stay for you and a friend at the luxury Motse Lodge, including flights from either Johannesburg or Cape Town. Open to all WildEarth explorers who have signed up before the end of January 2021. Terms and conditions apply. If you love to watch WildEarth, then we are inviting you to join our Explorers program. For a monthly subscription, you will have the opportunity to win fantastic WildEarth expeditions, join our guides for a chat around the fire, receive weekly highlights from our shows, and much more. All the money will go to keeping these live safaris on air, which in turn allows us to escape into nature every single day.
Hi, I'm Mike Anderson, and I come to you live every day from Eco-Training Pridelands Conservancy in South Africa. The wild animal I think is most underrated. I think buffaloes are the most underrated. They're so tenacious and ferocious, and also very, very protective of each other, which I find incredible. You know, sometimes people think of the big 5, they just think of lions and leopards and other big animals, but I think buffaloes are pretty underrated.
Catch up with the guides daily here on WildEarth.
We have a baby pangolin, a baby pangolin. This is off the charts. This animal is about from your fingertips to your elbow. That's the total length of this animal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is like now my 4th Christmas in a week. We should do this more often.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
So I'm sitting with the Birmingham Lioness, And she's actually busy grooming herself. She's readjusted so she's facing the den site here at andBeyond in Ngala. And I'm thinking, or more hoping actually, that because she's starting to move around a bit and she's now facing the site, that the cubs, there they come. There we go. That the cubs are going to come out. Oh my goodness, that is the cutest thing I've seen. Gosh, she's watching it. Where are you going? Sniffing around a bit. It's one of 3. Oh, it got a fright. So this is the second time that I've seen one of her cubs in this particular litter, and I'm freaking out on the inside. There it comes back again. It's in the long grass. And we're keeping it nice and quiet here because we don't want to frighten these cubs at all. And I can honestly say it is such a privilege to have them out of the den site while we're sitting here. She's just watching what it's doing. The flies are bothering her quite a bit. There's another one coming. That's the second one. I hope you're all as excited as I am. I'm sure you are. This is adorable. Oh my goodness. Oh, it looks like it's playing with her tail. Oh, cute. Practicing those skills from a young age. So these cubs are between 5 and 5.5 weeks old. You can see they're still very, very fluffy. Their eyes are still quite small. They only would have opened somewhere around 2 weeks old. So this is a whole new world for these cubs. And for them, every single day is a new learning experience. Denver lion cubs have one of the highest mortality rates, or one of the lowest survival rates. Usually only half of them, 50%, will get to around 2 years old. And after that, males, only about 1 in 4, 25% of them will survive to adulthood. So they really do have a very high mortality rate. But she is an exceptional mom. She's one of the more experienced lionesses of the Birmingham Pride. So hopefully she gets all 3 of these cubs to adulthood. We don't know yet if they're male or female. It's very hard to tell at this age. Also, yes, they do look very, very cuddly. Very cuddly indeed. Oh, it's chewing on grass. That makes it even cuter. I definitely wouldn't suggest trying to cuddle a wild lion cub. But it is very cute to watch, exploring the grass. You can just see the tops of the white tip on the ear. Oh, that's cute. Paws in the air. So it's actually playing with the other one in the grass there now. They're both in the same place. They're having a bit of a rough and tumble. Bambi, yes, all lions are born with their claws, and they are retractable entire lives. But it obviously takes to get used to having these claws and having sharp teeth as well. It takes Mom quite a while to get used to the sharp teeth too. Can you imagine? Oh, there's number 3. Oh my goodness. Can you imagine Mom having to deal with 3 hungry babies with very sharp teeth and claws? Oh, that yawn is incredibly cute. Bush baby, yes, I like your name. That's very apt at the moment, well suited. But yes, this is incredibly cute. And Mom's just watching on from the corner. She's starting to groom that one. Oh my goodness. Look at those little toe pads. Oh, that is cute. Oh, this is so worth it. I could sit here and watch this all day, every single day, and not get bored. What a privilege. See a little tail sticking out behind Mom. My heart is melting as well. There is almost nothing cuter than baby predators. Especially when they're still this age. They're almost still a little bit clumsy. They haven't quite gotten used to the idea of walking in a straight line and those kinds of things, and it just is, it's heart melting. It really, really is. Every now and then you just see the tip of the ear of that little one that's almost at her back now. They must keep her very, very busy. I wonder if she's going to give them a chance to feed. She looks like she's repositioning so that they can maybe access her teats. Maybe time to give them a groom. You can see she's licking one. Yep, there you go. One looks like it's settling into suckle. Oh, cute. Kisses from Mum. So this is an absolutely incredible and peaceful scene. So I'm definitely going to be sitting here a while longer with these little babies. I'm so excited to be here. But in the meantime, while they are in this long grass, we'll send you over to the dam cam and the Pride of Lions at Djuma.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating for Tessa to have the cubs and cuteness, but what's also fascinating is what's just happened now. You see the young male is walking away. He's a big boy for, he's kind of almost a fully grown lioness size now, but he was walking towards the carcass and the rest of the females just started growling and hissing at him and making a lot of noise as if to say, don't come anywhere near me, I don't want you here. Which is strange. I don't understand why they would do that. Maybe it's just because they know he's just so much physically stronger than they are that if he comes and sits there, he's going to eat everything. But he's like a little beach ball, so I don't think he really wants to eat much more. I think he's as full as needs be. It was cute though. Just now he was sitting on the road and there was a little fly buzzing around, and his face at the confusion of this fly bouncing into his nose and flying around him and hitting his body was quite funny to watch. He kind of had almost cross eyes trying to kind of keep up with this little fly flying around him. And eventually he got irritated, so he walked off and went and lay where the others are in the grass. At the moment, though, I can only count 11. I'm sure there are more. The grass is so long that when they lie in it away from the kill, you can't see it. White mane, no. Dark mane is not here. I see there's more playing right in the distance. I've got a whole bunch more that are busy messing about there. I don't know what they're doing. You can just see tails flicking and lions running around. So no dark mane that I've seen. I haven't heard any calls or anything like that. If dark mane was here, you would know about it. He would have run in here and chased them all off and taken one of these kills for himself. He would have literally picked it up and dragged it and sat on top of it, essentially, to feed on it. So he would have scattered all of these females off of these kills and taken one at least for himself. So he's not here. I don't know where he is. He hasn't actually been with the Telematis much of late. He's been spending a lot more time on his own and drifting quite a bit further south. He's almost kind of heading now towards sort of southern Arethusa, towards the Lomdolozi boundary. I don't know if he's potentially trying to find his brothers or if it's just a coincidence that he's moving down there because he's searching for the Telematis and just not picking them up. I don't know. But he's definitely moving a lot more than what he used to in terms of kind of southwards. And it's nice when the Telematis don't have him. As much as it's always cool to see a pride with a big male lion and, they together, it's nice for them not to have that pressure because he will eat so much that it's just putting more and more pressure on this pride to find food, whereas when they can kill for themselves and they remove the male out of the equation, it makes life for the adults that are hunting and the sub-adults that have started hunting, like those males, that much easier to negotiate. I think there's a lion that's found something in the grass there. Maybe it's a tortoise or something, because it's kind of like walking and looking in the grass in circles. The last time I saw lions doing that, it was in Masai Mara, and there was with a pangolin. They were doing it. But I'm not sure if a tortoise would be a better bet with all the rain that we've had in this area. I often find that they start playing around the tortoises. You'll see him coming now from the top of the hill. I think it's a he. I can't see nicely. It's a long way away, but walking through the grass. Might be an adult lioness up at the top there. Henry, most definitely, they are enjoying their spare ribs. They like them very underdone, though. That's the problem. But they're very happy with what they've got. It amazes me how quickly these guys eat. Sometimes we find them in the mornings after, the night has passed and you find them on a carcass and it's almost finished, and you often think to yourself, they must have made this kind of in the middle of the night. Or you find them very full and you find the remains of a carcass and you think, okay, well, it's been in the last must have been early in the evening. But this goes to show you, in the space of 2 hours, they have decimated these kills to the point that the kills look really not great. And it's fascinating to kind of see how quickly they go through it. Hello, girl. Okay, guys, settle down. There's enough food for everybody. There's no need for everyone to be fighting. Rain is now just starting to fall again. Knew it couldn't stay away for too long. We were bound to get some rain at some point. It's always the case when you get these cyclone activities, is you get bands of rain that come through. What have you guys seen? What's behind me? Are you just fascinated with the water? They're all just kind of staring behind me at the moment. We've got our rain roof on, so it's very difficult to actually show you guys what's going on around us, unfortunately. I think they want to drink, but the problem is there's nowhere to drink, and they don't want to drink from the dam because of crocodiles. Doug, it's not too bad. I've seen a lot worse than this when it comes to battling for carcasses. This is very tame compared to something like a warthog or impala. It's a lot more of a battle for those smaller carcasses than what you're seeing with this particular one. This one's quite civil, actually, in comparison to a lot of other sightings I've had. We had two pretty cool sightings of this pride and the Djuma pride on warthog kills. We want to see kind of competition at a carcass. It was, last year. You'll be able to go and find those two sightings, and you'll see just how fierce these lions can get around food. All right, well, we'll just carry on sitting with them and see what plays out. Like I said, I'm thoroughly enjoying actually just spending time with the lions this afternoon. And hopefully, like I say, some hyenas will arrive a little bit later. In the meantime, Steve's doing a spot of birding on the camera behind me.
Thank you, Justin. Well, we haven't gone very far. We had a little zoom into your vehicle just before. And we've now zoomed back over towards the dam and caught up with a pair of water thickneys once again that are going through what's probably a constant battle of grooming today. They seem to get wet, and then they dry themselves, and then wet again. So it's a constant sort of battle of, should we do the laundry today or should we wait? They don't really have the option, being out here as they are. But what is going to happen is more and more organisms are going to perish as the water levels rise, and these thickneys are very good at running around the edge of these pans and water holes, and any insects that blow to the side that have been drowned or washed down will get picked up and be fed upon. So it's a time of abundance. The rains come and surely wash the slate clean. All of the tracks get washed away, all of the dirt and grime, all of the baggage of vegetation that's been hanging on gets floated down and filled into the rivers and eventually pushed out towards the oceans. This constant cycle of life continues, and many organisms will take advantage of that. Now, you might ask, how do you know these are water thickneys? Do me? That's a good question. Now, they actually have got a thick sort of knee on them there. They used to be known as dikops. The name dikop means thick head. So where that name came from is hard for me to tell you outright. But they've been since named thick knees, which I suppose, if you look at them, they do have relatively thick knees, considering. But they are, for the most part, nocturnal birds. They've got very large eyes. We do see them around the water holes regularly, but like their cousin or their siblings, cousins, the spotted thickney, you only see the spotted thickney out and about at night. But these fellows are always around the water, always trying to capitalize. And so I suppose the name dikop just doesn't really work anymore, although I still know a lot of people who call them dikops. But this being the water, you'll notice that the back of their body is not very spotted. It's sort of almost quite beige and quite brown. It's a bit mottled, but the spotted thickney is very easily identified by their very, very comprehensive spotting all over the back of the body. Also, the water thickney occurs in and around water, whereas the spotted is all over the place. Carforman, you don't know if there's any fish? I don't know. There could possibly be some catfish, but this watering hole has only really had a lot of water in it for the last 2 years. The season before that, it was completely dry, and not many fish are capable of surviving such a sort of event. But catfish are able to migrate over land, and it's possible, but I doubt that there's too much in here, hence why there are no crocodiles. We see the herons moving around. They're feeding on insects mainly, and probably frogs and tadpoles. And most of the birds you see around are feeding on insects. We don't have a fish eagle resident at this watering hole, so it dries up regularly. So I surmise there is no fish. But I don't know. I've never gone and dived or snorkeled in there. The hippos are not very accommodating to such activity. Miss Muss and Girl, you say it's a very full dam. It is indeed. It is indeed a very full watering hole at the moment. Sorry, there's lots of insects moving around on the edge that make me think I see things, and I don't. Yes, it is full to bursting. And rainfall events like this, you see how the edge is completely to the edge of vegetation. Those grasses there are not aquatic grasses, everybody. Those are grasses that grow, and many of them will probably die. Some of them are sedges, will do all right, but many of those grasses are not designed to be submerged. They've been growing in quite wet, moist environment, but they're not designed to be submerged. So we might see some vegetation die off, but what it does do is it provides very nice habitat for many of our very skulky kind of birds, the crakes, the jacanas, the snipes, that like to hang out in those rank vegetation areas. Moorhen, not just for feeding, but for breeding as well. So these perfect little habitats there where you could hide all sorts of things, and perfectly along drainage lines hidden in these thick vegetated areas. It's a perfect place to hide a little family of lion cubs.
So we are back with our cuteness overload here in Ngala. And these three cubs have so much energy. It is unbelievable. They have been wrestling each other there. You can see climbing all over Mum. And she is very patient, very tolerant. So that one has definitely been the hungriest of the three. But you can see it's all fun and games, climbing all over each other, catching Mum's tail, and stumbling around. So Mum is looking incredibly relaxed on her back. And these little cubs definitely know how to keep us entertained. Absolutely unreal. So you can see exactly how well hidden they are. No, unfortunately we haven't had a good enough look at them yet to be able to tell if they are male or female. The one I did see earlier lying on its back on the grass, and it looked like it may have been a male, but it is very hard to tell at this stage, because when they are out in the open they're usually running around and wrestling with each other, so we don't get a very clear view for long enough. And you can see that one is fascinated by Mum's tail. I think this might be my best day this year. It's incredibly cute. Already just spending a little bit of time with them, I'm noticing small differences between the three cubs. One has quite a lot more white on the backs of its ears. The other two seem to have a little bit less. One has a spot on its left-hand side that looks like it may be a scar. One even looks a little bit smaller than the other two. And they are just bundles of energy this afternoon in this cool weather. The breeze has actually changed direction. And you can see there's a beautiful soft breeze blowing through that den side. So she's done a very good job of hiding them where she has, because they've got a slight breeze, but enough away from the elements that they're actually sheltered from the storm. And you can see there's quite a large storm coming in behind me, so I'm pretty sure that she's going to be staying with them throughout the storm, just to make sure that they're warm and safe. But I can't begin to tell you what a feeling it is actually sitting here and seeing those cubs come out. I'm having a full freak out at the moment. My brain is just whizzing. So they're actually now back at Mom's tail, having a bit of a wrestling match again. And I'm so impressed by how active they are and how curious as well. Peter, lions will sleep like that as a way of keeping cool. So their hair on their stomach is quite thin. And so if they're wanting to cool themselves down, the fastest way to do it is to expose their stomach into the breeze. And so that's why lions will often sleep on their backs with their legs open to expose as much of the stomach as possible. So these little cubs are actually incredibly curious. Every sound, like the crested francolins at the moment, or even a slight sound from us moving in the vehicle, and the cubs look over and see what we're doing. Mom's going over to that one thinking, I think you're a bit far at the moment. Maybe come back. The cow's looking at her. That is adorable. And you can really see that size difference. Oh, we're just going to pick it up. Oh my word. Oh my goodness, that is incredible. It's my first time in my life to see this happening in person. She definitely thought that cub was just a little bit too far over the edge. And she picked it up and moved it straight back. Oh my goodness. Just trying to keep the little ones safe. Oh wow. That is a moment that I will never forget in my life. We are having a full wrestling match here. And this is so important for little cubs, especially from this age onwards. This is how they learn the skills to become an adult lion that knows how to survive. By playing and wrestling and practicing how to handle themselves in a fight, but also even in a kill. Playing is the most important learning tool for baby lions. Paddy aged 12. How far would these cubs wander from Mum at this age? I would think, when she went and picked that one up, it must have been less than 1.5 meters from her, 4 to 6 feet away. And yet she went and picked it up. So on their own, they might try and wander a little bit, but at this stage, everything is still so new that Mom is very careful about where they go. But at the same time, they're also not quite brave enough yet to wander too much further without coming back, because any big sound, any big movement, and they'll look at it, but they immediately start retreating back to the safety of Mom. And that's all down to natural instinct. And she is such a good mom. You can see she's very alert. She's listening. Now that it's cooler and the rain is creeping closer and closer, she knows things like hyenas and other lions and even wild dogs might be more active now than they were an hour ago. As it's getting darker and darker as well, the clouds are blocking out a lot of light. And so a lot of the predators are going to be more active, and that's why she's being extra careful and didn't tolerate that little cub moving too far away. But I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to sit here for a few more minutes and just see if those cubs come back out. I imagine it's almost time for their next nap after so much playing. But I'm very, very happy to be sitting here experiencing this with you.
Palpable, everybody. Now, I know many of you have watched the show for a long time, and you've probably seen lion cubs in the mouths of parents regularly, but to find a lioness with cubs, and as Tess is saying there, the first time she's seen a lioness pick a cub up like that, that's real joy, everybody. That's real excitement, real excitement. And, well, it gets better and better and better. And I've no doubt she's going to be spending the next few weeks watching those little youngsters develop. As you've seen with us here last year, we spent a lot of time tracking and finding the Ngala lioness with her cubs, Chela. And that was both exhilarating and at times quite tragic. And what a year it has been. I can't believe that's a year ago. It is calming down here at Vuyatela, or Gowrie Dam as it's also known. The hippos are plomped on the floor there. You can see they're right up on the shallows, probably with their legs tucked up underneath them to require no effort to stand. And as Tristan says, the rain comes and goes, comes and goes. There they are. I found them. Are you ready for some Egyptian goose action? Have a look at this smooth transition, everybody. Not as smooth as I would have liked.
Still feeding going on. We were watching actually 3 of them try to go down and drink, and they managed to negotiate eventually, and they were quite playful, but now it seems as though they've decided to all lie down, of course. But everybody is still stacked around the carcass itself, still feeding, just enjoying kind of the bounty that they have this afternoon. Let's see what happens when this male arrives, because he seems to cause a stir amongst them. All okay, that's good. A few little low grumbles, but nothing major to speak of. The president says yes, they most definitely do. I have seen many a lion with intestinal worms coming out of their backside. It's not very pretty at all, but is part and parcel of being a lion, I suppose. They eat all kinds of rotten things, and eventually they're going to pick up parasites internally. It's why, even something like lion saliva is very bad for humans. If you've been touching lions, their coats or anything like that obviously you wouldn't touch wild lions, but veterinary care workers and things like that, they always use very heavy sanitizers in order to get rid of anything, but they do carry tapeworms particularly. You often see them coming out. I mean, we had a wild dog the other day with tapeworms, but I've seen lions with it a few times hanging out. It's a pretty rough thing to see, if I'm honest. It's not very pleasant. Having a look at internal worms coming out of the backside, it just feels uncomfortably invasive to be watching a lion struggling with it. I don't know why. It makes you kind of, your hair stand up. Ugh. Anyway. they seem pretty grossed out by it too. In all the lions that I've seen, they're constantly trying to kind of get them out somehow. They're like, what? They rub their bum on the ground. And to try and kind of pull those worms out. Then you said that growling is quite something to hear, and they're not even going properly. This is, like I said, this is them, if you had to put it into gear terms, this would be in sort of first gear table manners. When they go up into fifth, that noise that you heard there now can amplify like that, and it goes for a good 10-15 minutes. It can sometimes be like that, especially if they haven't eaten for a while and they grab something small. It's absolute pandemonium, and they just hiss and growl and hit, and it's quite a scary thing. We were talking a little bit about it this morning. For people who are not used to it or know about it, it really does kind of make your hair stand on up straight, and you kind of feel as though you're on edge. The sounds themselves, somehow in our brains, and this I'm sure is to do with self-preservation in many respects, has figured out that those sounds are potential danger, and it does really kind of get underneath your skin a little bit when you right near them and they start going like that for long periods of time. Particularly in the dark, it kind of incites people's fears in many ways. But, it's all part and parcel of their feeding. They're not kind of doing too much damage to one another. There's odd claw that will catch one in the nose or on the eye, and you get a little cut and scrape. And that's why when we often talk about, there's one that's crossing the river now. Your paws are going to get wet. Let me go back. You're going to get wet. You're not going to be able to go there. I don't know if you can get it, but it wants to have a drink. I was trying to go across. Is that not nice, having wet paws? You silly lion, you could have drank from anywhere else. You don't have to go there. Look, it's watching that water. I wonder what's going through its mind. Let's see if it shakes its paws. Yes, what are you doing, silly sausage? I feel like there's part of this lion that's got that naughty child inside it that's like, I just want to go and jump in there and see what happens. And the other part of it is like, don't really want to be wet. Enzo is 7 years old. You want to know how loud a lion's roar is? Here's the female with the injury right next to us. Unfortunately, the pole might be in the way. I do apologize, but we need it. You see how this wildebeest clipped her on the inside of her leg. You'll see the flap of skin and the wound. It's a proper little wound that she's got in there, and that's going to be a horrible one to heal because it's right where the joint is rubbing, so it's going to be rubbing all the time. And for now, she's not sore because it's fresh. It hasn't been a while, but that's going to be sore tomorrow when the stiffness takes hold and she starts to actually realize that she's been a bit injured. It is just a flesh wound, so nobody out there panic at this stage. There's, she's not going to be dying from that. That is, here comes playful lions in the background. But Enzo, I didn't answer your question. You're asking about how loud is a lion's roar. Very loud is the answer. Those lions in the back, they are going to run after each other. Look at them. They're trouble already. They're kind of in the grass, lying low. As this female steps out, one of them's going to jump on her. Maybe they've thought better of it. They've realized it's not one of the sub-adults, and they've therefore decided not to jump on her. But there was definitely a moment there where they thought about it. I think if it had been, like I said, one of the smaller lions, they would have. They know that moms are not as inclined to play like they are. Do you see how the more experienced lions drinking from the water in the road? Inexperienced lions down by fast-flowing water. More experienced lions know fast-flowing water or water that's deep can hold a lot of danger in the form of crocodiles. And the inexperienced ones, like I was saying to you, they haven't dealt with huge amounts of water in their life, are quite brazen in going down to the water's edge and trying to kind of mess around down there. There's another two that are at the water's edge now again. That whole bank is still crumbling as well. It's amazing to see what damage water can do. You see the bank on the left there, how it's crumbling away. It's actually busy happening right now. Hectic. You notice all the lions that are drinking are mostly sub-adults down at the water. It would have been such a beautiful view from the other side to kind of look across that flowing water and see those lions all lined up in a row. But unfortunately, like I said to you, the reserve is actually, so they've basically shut down the whole reserve in terms of trying to protect the roads. And it's not because we can't drive, we can drive around, but when we drive around, all we're doing is really damaging the reserve. So what's happening is the roads have reached the saturation point. The water's now sitting on the surface. The more vehicles that go up and down, the more that road gets churned up and it becomes like a slush. And that slush then means people start sliding and shifting, and you're in open vehicles. Now, if somebody slides in the wrong place and the wheels hits in the wrong way and the car turns, you can get the car rolling onto somebody, which can lead to somebody dying. You keep damaging the roads beyond repair, and that's why it's often when you get really heavy rains like this, which is once in a blue moon. I mean, it's not like it happens often. Just try and shut down the whole reserve, just to try and keep people safe. The reason why we were allowed here is twofold. One is that the road to get here is very, very stable. It's well drained. It's okay. And the second thing is that with the dam cam, we weren't able to actually get view of the lions very well on the kills. So we thought it would be nice just to come out and show you guys these lions. And like I say, the owners of Djuma as well as the management were very kind in letting us come out and letting one or two other vehicles come down and have a look at the lions themselves. So it's really been, a nice thing for everybody to kind of enjoy them, and we'd be thankful for the fact that we actually were able to get the views that we're getting right now. There's definitely a third kill though, 100%. A lioness has just walked out here. She is so covered in blood. There is no ways that they haven't killed another one. Joshua, they don't generally. Well, some lions. It depends on the lions. Lions in the Okavango Delta in Botswana have zero care about being wet. They often wade through channels because they have to. It's just part and parcel of their life. Lions in even parts of, if you look at the marsh pride in the Masai Mara, the ones that live in the marsh, they've got to go through wet, marshy areas regularly in order to be able to survive. These guys are all going to play in front of us. I'll go forward a little bit so we can get them. Lions get used to it. There was a pride in the south of the Sabi Sands on the Sand River called the Charleston Pride, and they loved water. They used to play all the time in the water. They used to sleep in it even on hot days. If they felt like they were kind of uncomfortable, they just go lie in the water. So some are more prone to accepting it than others, and ultimately today it's rained so much they're wet anyway. Going down and putting your feet in the water, while not ideal, is not the end of the world for these guys. They are capable of dealing with it. This is the injured lioness. Shame, my girl. Did you take a bit of a hit there? She's also got a couple scrapes on her back legs as well. But those are old. Those are all healed up. Tanya, yeah, they can. Most cats can actually swim. They just don't like to. And the reason why a lot of the cats here in this part of the world don't swim is because of crocodiles. It's very dangerous to be swimming here. That can lead to, almost certain death if you're swimming in certain areas. And they have just developed the instinct and evolved to not worry about being anywhere near water in Africa or deep water. They try and kind of stay as clear from it as possible, but they can swim and they do it quite well. Like I said, that Charleston Pride that we used to see, they were amazing. I always used to laugh because you'd go down to the Sand River and you'd find these 3 lions. There was a lioness and 2 sub-adult males, and they would lie in the water, and they would have their heads on the sandbank, and then their bums and tails would be in the channel of the river. And they would just sleep there, and they would often kill in the river. They would actually chase things like kudu. These lions here are going to chase each other. Look, they're stalking each other in front. So watch these 3. There's like a trifecta of them all converging on each other. Oh no, of course behind the tree. You two, honestly. They used to sleep like, and then sometimes they'd make kills in the river. And one of the most fascinating sightings I ever had of them, they killed a massive kudu. Watch the one in the grass. It's going to come pouncing out if the other one walks past. No, lay down, sorry, foiled the plan. And they killed this kudu, very large kudu bull in the river, and that kudu bull caused a huge blood trail to go down river. Now, at the time, the Sand River was quite shallow, so there wasn't many crocodiles in that section of the Sand River. But what it did attract was massive catfish. And these catfish came up on the scent of the blood. And there was this fight between lions and catfish over this kudu. It was amazing. And the lions obviously were chasing the catfish. They actually managed to catch one. But the catfish themselves ate quite a bit of the kudu as well. They got into the carcass and they were inside the stomach cavity of the carcass. And they were just like barreling in, and the lions were feeding off the sort of rumps and shoulders. So it was just this absolute chaos when it came to all of these kind of lions and fish. So this is the lioness I was talking about that is covered in blood, who came from a complete different direction, the one that's just laid down. So there's definitely a third kill. She was not feeding with the rest here. She came down and her whole chest and face is covered. All right, you lot, go play. Okay, well, we're going to carry on watching these guys. Hopefully the sub-adults are going to be bored and start playing more. In the meantime, talking about playful things, let's send you across to Tess with the cubs, who I'm sure will be playful soon too.
So it seems like everybody's getting a bit sleepy here at andBeyond and Ngala. 2 of the cubs have gone back into the den site. And this lioness, although you can't see it, she has one cub just in front of her face lying in the grass. And every now and then it's popping its head back up, but you can see she's actually falling asleep. And I think they've used a lot of energy today playing. They've had a nice feed. They've got some warm milk in their bellies. And it's almost time for them to go back to sleep. There you can see the little cub. There it is. Oh, there's still 2 out. Another one must have crept back out. Oh, that's cute. Amanda, this is this lioness's litter already. She 12 years old, so she might have even had that. I've been here, which has been almost 3.5 years. She's had 3 litters that I've seen. So I've been incredibly lucky. But she's a very experienced lioness. Experienced. You can see what now. You can see she's actually just starting to relax. And we've actually been noticing the wind has been changing a little bit. And I think that might be why they're starting to relax. The bird whistling in the background, the very high-pitched one, is saying coffee, tea or me. It's an orange-breasted bush shrike. A beautiful green and orange bird. And actually we haven't heard, and I think just before the rain now, there's a lot of birds out. We've noticed some southern carmine bee-eaters, some European bee-eaters, little bee-eaters, starlings, franklins, even grey-headed shrikes. It really is a beautiful, beautiful day for bird calls at the moment, and I think it's because the weather is coming in. But you can see it looks like and everyone is starting to relax and maybe have a nap before the weather comes in. But I just can't believe how much I have seen with you today. certainly a day that I will never ever forget. Not every day you get to do this and see these kinds of things. It is an absolute privilege. You can actually still see the movements, paws down at her chest. So she's starting to fall asleep. The cubs, I think, are in that phase of suckling and then playing every now and then, but really starting to mellow down at the moment. And she might give them a little bit of a groom before they go back into the den site. The cub that had already gone into the den site has not come. I think it's already got a nice full belly, and it is absolutely from all the wrestling and biting of mom's tail. And that grooming is very important. It's one of those things that really increases the bonding with the lions. Linda, Mom will protect her den site by actually attacking any other lions that come close or any other predators. But what she also does is she moves the den site frequently so that the smell does not build up. If there is a build-up of smell in the area, that means other predators will be able to find the den. So her first method of protecting it is actually moving den sites every now and then. But then she'll also on their own because her presence could actually attract other predators as well. And so she would leave for a few hours or sometimes even a day or two at a time and then come back and feed the cubs. But if she was threatened at this den site now, she would go into attack mode. She would be incredibly anything that comes close. Occasionally there have been lionesses that use distraction techniques, so moving away if they see another predator, hoping the predator will follow them. But whether or not that's a better tactic, I don't know. Statistically, I would think she would be safer one-on-one at the den site attacking anything that comes close, provided it's not maybe an entire clan of hyenas or a big male lion that she couldn't defeat in a fight. The little cub at her nose is a bit more active. Colleen, yes, this lioness absolutely can hunt successfully without her pride. It does take quite a bit of experience in lions to be able to hunt on your own because they are quite a bit bigger than leopards and cheetahs, which means they're slower and they need to get a little bit closer before they can run up and grab something. But she is an incredibly experienced hunter, so she is not bothered that the rest of the pride is far away because she knows that she can feed her stick anything that comes along. Look at that little paw sticking up. Oh, cute. You can see the lions are still very spotted, the little cubs. They have a lot of dark markings on the fur still, and that's completely normal to help them camouflage in the den site and in the long grass. And those spots you can sometimes see until they're adults, but at the moment they'll be very prominent till around 6 months old, and then they start to fade. And then from there you'll see they get lighter and lighter. Adult lions and lionesses have a predominantly white stomach, and only occasionally you'll see some of those spots maybe still on the legs on the inside. So we can actually feel it is starting to rain here. So what I'm doing is to settle back into the den with the weather coming in, and we're gonna head on and hopefully avoid some of the weather.
Have you been watching WildEarth and dreamt of being right there on safari with one of the guides? Well, now you can. WildEarth is offering you a chance to buy a ticket to dream. You or a friend can hop on board a live WildEarth show and join our guide on safari. The ticket is redeemable at any of our locations, anytime in the future. Only a limited number of tickets are available, so don't wait. Get your ticket now and start dreaming. Terms and conditions apply.
Guys, have a look at what we've got. This is better than my birthday. Look at that. This is the first time that I ever see cubs this small. This is so special. This has officially just become my best sighting of all times.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
This is Rusty. He's my favorite vehicle and we've been through all the good times here in the bush. Now, if you feel a connection to Djuma Game Reserve like I do, then we have a fantastic opportunity for you. You can have your name engraved on a brushed metal plaque just like this one, and we will attach it to Rusty so you can always be with us on safari in spirit. We will even send you a digital photograph once your plaque is mounted on Rusty. Spaces are limited, so grab your spot now. Hello everyone, my name is Trishala and I am a naturalist and safari guide here in Djuma Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands in South Africa. I think that the information that we provide, and most importantly the questions that you ask, give both you and I a really good idea of what's going on. My friend Fernando here, he's a flat-necked chameleon and I love them. They're just these gems that you manage to find in the bush.
Catch up with the guides daily here on WildEarth.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on WildEarth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
Still sitting with our lions. They've somehow contorted this wildebeest, and you can actually see the sort of rump, I mean not the rump, the fillet or backstrap of this animal quite clearly now, as the spine was contorted there. So for humans that would be the kind of delicacy, would be that strap there on an animal, but for lions, well, it's not the first place that they start to go. They rather start to get to the internal organs and various other things before they started feeding their way up the back of the spine. You can see that lioness now has just stood up. He's going to start eating that pretty quickly. And you think your families at dinner are able to go through a fillet steak pretty quickly. Watch how fast these guys go through it. It's amazing. The other bit of news we have is that there's definitely a third wildebeest that's been killed. So it's not just two. There's the third one, unfortunately, there's no real visual of it. It's exactly where I said it was, where the lions keep walking to and from. You know straight away that there's another kill when, I mean, they kind of had a 90% inkling that there was one, but you know when there's lions leaving 2 kills and walking away and coming back with blood, that there's most certainly a third. There's no reason for them to move for water. So if it had been dry and they were going to water, different story. But in this case, we know that they don't have to go far for water. There's water on the road. There's water flowing right next to us. And so no need to go to Tumbeta for water. There must be a third reason for it, which is that there is another meal. And so that's why they are so split and so disjointed, and why there's so little competition on these kills. The amazing part about it, though, is even though there's 3 wildebeest, they've pretty much, between the 14 of them, basically finished all 3 right now. This one here has got meat on it, but not a huge amount. The one behind it has still got probably, I would say, a third left. This one here is probably only a quarter. And then the far one, obviously, we can't see as well, but the fact that the lions keep leaving it seems to suggest that there's not that much on that one either. Crazy. I feel very bad, though, because our quarantine wildebeest herd has just been culled by a third. So they've gone from 9 individuals to 6 in the space of 2 minutes, basically. Not great odds. Wildebeest generally don't do well, especially when we have good rainfall. So we've been seeing a slow, steady increase in wildebeest and zebra herds as well as wild dogs and cheetah because of the drought that we've had. That's led to shorter grasses, therefore much easier for those animals that live in more open spaces to detect other predators and make sure that they stay a lot safer. As we've had rain now and the grasses have grown, you find that the wildebeest and zebra are out of their depth a little bit. They can't see as well in these long grasses, and well, they just get absolutely hammered. Particularly the wildebeest. The zebra seem to be a little bit more aware of what's going on than the wildebeest themselves. They somehow get themselves into trouble all the time. I'm going to try and see if we can go forward. Let's try to see if we can get a visual of the third kill. I can see where a lion is feeding, so we'll try. There's a little lion in the grass. It's rolling around. Linda, yes, 100% it will lick a wound when it's got one. That's all part of keeping it nice and clean. Oh, hello. Didn't even know you were here, you two. Have you not seen a roof before? Hey, looking at our roof as though it's the most alien thing that they've ever seen. Okay, so this lioness is blocking where the view should be. So you can see where the other lions are. They're just up on my right-hand side. I'll try see... Of course, there would be a bush in the way. Let's just try and go around this little bush quickly. So where that male is there is where I think the other kill is somewhere in that general vicinity. I don't know, maybe with the camera being slightly higher than what I am, we'll be able to see where it is. But it's somewhere in here that they've got another kill. You can see the lions all milling about and they're all covered in blood in this general kind of area. So I suspect there is a third kill here. I wonder how big it is. Maybe that little baby wildebeest, although someone said they saw the baby wildebeest run up towards quarantine. I think Thereon at midnight, I think is, I don't know, I didn't get the name very well, but Djuma Clan big enough to bully this set of lions off these kills? Probably not. I don't think so. I think you'll find that the clan is not big enough to challenge this many lions. What might happen is they might just surrender one carcass to them, especially if the carcass is almost done. It's not worth fighting over. They've got another two anyway. So sometimes when there's this little bit of competition between hyena and lions and they've got multiple kills, they just sometimes say, you know what, you guys have it. I don't even feel like defending it from you anymore. I'll just go back to the other two, and they all then congregate into the same area to be able to have their kills together. There's definitely, the third one is here. We can't see it at all, but another vehicle saw them pick it up, and it was definitely a wildebeest, so there is a third kill that is in that general vicinity. All right, we'll move back into the two kills that we can see, because most of the kind of action will take place there. In the meantime, let's send you across to Steve with another animal that is here at the dam.
Welcome back to the dam cam, everybody, where, well, we've got a hippo again who a moment ago was playing with his favorite stick. I think it's the same fellow that I had enjoying himself at Treehouse watering whole not so long ago. Oh, look at that. He's definitely performing for us beautifully. Beautifully. There we go. He's got something. He's found it. Sid, I mean, obviously hippos are prone to attack by lion, not while they're in the water. In the water, they're completely safe, but a big hippo, a very, very difficult animal to bring down for lions. It doesn't mean lions aren't interested and don't attempt to from time to time. I had friends working for Aquavision years ago that were doing a National Geographic documentary that managed to film the famous mountain pride jumping on the back of a hippo, all 20-odd lions. But as they tried to jump on the back, the hippo managed to turn its head and caught one of the 'lionesses. Now, a lioness is 300-odd pounds, And it picked it up like a rag doll and threw her about 15 odd meters, 15 odd yards, where she tumbled and rolled. It caught her underneath the chin, a tusk through the bottom of the jaw and one through behind the eye socket. And after the pride saw that, they weren't as vigilant or as determined to try and pull that hippo down. And bearing in mind, the hippo's got a very low center of gravity, and they're very powerful little tanks. So even if they did manage to get the hippo down on the ground, they'd still have to penetrate the hide and get away from that enormous gaping jaw. So it doesn't mean they don't try to, and every now and again hippos are killed by lion. But a hippo of this size, he really doesn't have too much to fear. Could bite a lion in half, essentially, if he wanted to. There we go, he's gone into deeper water. Josh, I certainly think, Josh, age 8, that in the animal kingdom on land, hippos have got a very big mouth, but we can't discredit whales. Of course, whales have got ginormous mouths, but hippos, as far as I'm aware, have the largest mouth. They're obviously able to open it wider than many others. And that is for many reasons. For it doesn't serve any feeding purpose having that enormous mouth, but definitely when they fight, they bear those tusks and those teeth towards each other, and they push against each other. So definitely has its pros, but then it makes eating very, very difficult, because with a mouth like that, hippos have to nibble the grass stalks with their lips. Don't know when last you tried to mow the lawn with your lips, everybody, but it is not an easy thing to do. Not that I've tried myself. I've just watched them do it and realized that it's really not something that I would attempt to do. But yes, they do very, very big mouths. We always used to have a chocolate advert in South Africa many years ago. It was always about the hippo, and it was always demonstrating how big this chocolate was. It never was really that big if you think about it. I mean, if the older South Africans will remember that advert of the hippo and the young hippo eating the chocolate, opening its mouth wide. Imagine a chocolate that it takes the hippo's entire mouth to process. Many of you are getting quite excited about that, I'm sure. Well, just like that, the hippos have gone under, and all peaceful below the surface. Great heart, first animal I ever loved. That's a really good question. I haven't actually thought about that. I'd probably have to ask my mom, because she would remember those things. She would remember. It must have been my pussycat, for sure. It was the first pussycat we had, and its name was Pussycat, so very easy to remember. Or it might have also been the dog that we had called Sasha, or the dog we called Jess. Very hard for me to tell you. It was a very long time ago. It was before I knew anything about wildlife. And then my grandfather had a farm. He had cattle, and I used to love milking the cattle, not the goats. I used to love milking the cattle. I used to wake up early bells. I was a very early riser. I was very excited. My brother was the opposite. He used to sleep in while I had my red gumboots on and would charge down to the milking shed. And back in those days, everybody was done manually. You would milk and be very prepared when the cow's tail shifted, because you knew you were about to get pummeled with dung and urine. You had to just move the bucket out the way, let the cow do its business, and then continue milking. I loved that. I always wanted to be a farmer. So those are early memories of me. My grandparents also had 2 Staffordshire Terrier dogs that I really, really enjoyed spending time with. One of them, of course, was named Jock. Just like Jock of the Bushveld, he was a very, very sturdy dog who used to tackle baboons. But anyway, we are going to be sending you back over to Tess, who is over the moon this afternoon with the cutest sighting of her life.
So this is an incredibly exciting day all round, it seems. This is a bit of a stream flowing down the Timbavati riverbed, and it is so exciting for us to see this. It's been a very long time since we had water here. And just in front we have two of the Birmingham sub-adult lionesses. The one is very, very zonked out. She's having a cat nap on the right. And like Sebastian says, it almost looks like the sand is absorbing her. She is deep in dreamland. Have a look at that. She looks so relaxed. And the other lioness, believe it or not, was also till she saw a piece of white foam moving on the riverbed. And she saw it coming down the stream. Oh, yawn. And she actually started stalking it. And now she's lying completely fixated on a white piece of foam that has been floating down the stream next to us here. And for her, it's the first time she's ever seen this river flowing. So it must be something completely new. She's probably never seen foam in her life before. But just the fact that there is foam shows us how heavily this river must have been flowing upstream. Even though we've only got a stretch that's about 8 meters wide here, it is getting stronger and faster, and it is wider than it was. About an hour ago, there was only about a 1 to 2 meter stream flowing down this riverbed, so we can see there's a lot more water coming in. And she's definitely fixated on it. So, right next to us on the left here, we've got the riverbed and the white foam that is hooking on all of the trees and the bits of grass, and this is what she's been absolutely enthralled by, and it just shows you those natural instincts. Anything moving is a potential target, and so she's totally fixated by these bits of foam that are coming off and floating down the river. But what an incredible sight to see water in the Timbavati riverbed flowing. It's unreal. This does not happen often. And so it's a very, very exciting day for everyone here. Myself, Rowan and Eric have all come to have a look at the Timbavati riverbed with some water in it. What a beautiful sight with that lush greenery on the other side. This really is a very special day, and knowing that this is only about half of the rain that we're expecting as well. So 50, yes and no. So these lionesses might jump into deeper water if their prey is in deeper water. So for example, if they are tackling something at a river or a water hole and it happens to fall into the water, they would jump into the water after it. But if something in the water, I very highly doubt that they were to get it like a jaguar would. Jaguars are much more comfortable in water. They're much more efficient at hunting in water. Lions are a bit more, I don't want to say afraid of it, but a bit more cautious of being in the water. They do occasionally have to get into deep water to cross the rivers and things like that. But for hunting in particular, there have only been very few cases that I've heard of where lions would go into that deep hunting. She's absolutely enthralled by this. Alice in Wonderland, I love your handle, by the way, your name. I'm a big fan. So, total lionesses in the Birmingham Pride, if we're looking at adults only, there are 5. If we're looking at the sub-adults included, there are a further 4, I think. And then the younger cubs, there's one of those 2 younger 8-month-old cubs that is female. And we're not sure yet with the new 3. So there's actually... We're actually quite into dynamics going on at the moment with all of this having left. We don't know where the adults are in relation to these two sub-adults, but we know that the other 6 sub-adults have actually crossed out of our eastern boundary on the northeastern side of andBeyond and Ngala, and that is very far from where the adults are. So it almost looks like the Birmingham Pride might split up sometime soon, and whether that will be the sub-adults on their own and the adults on their own, or whether it'll be the sub-adults splitting in two, these 2 lionesses maybe staying on their own, the other sub-adults moving off on their own. We're not 100% sure. But it's certainly giving us very interesting dynamics to look at and to see how it is going to split, especially now that there are those 3 new cubs. And we still have another lioness that is heavily pregnant and we think is going to be denning in the riverbed sometime very soon as well. So there's a lot of mouths to feed. We have 22 lions in the Birmingham Pride at the moment. So I think what we're going to do, we're going to leave this lioness here enthralled by the river, and we are going to start heading back slowly in the direction of camp. We seem to have a bit of rain coming in, but hopefully we will be able to stay with you for the afternoon.
Well, still with the Pride, and we managed to eventually find the kill. It's under a bush. There's zero visual from where we can fall from the road itself, which is fine. I mean, it's no real reason to worry. It's not like it's behaviorally it's any different to what we're seeing here, and so we don't need to feel like we're missing out at all. We have certainly got a stellar view considering the conditions that we're in. You know, I was just chatting about it now to one of the vehicles. They're just saying, you know, if they had killed this 10 meters further, I mean, you can see the furthest kill, how difficult it is to really see what's going on there compared to the one that's closest to us. It's really an obscured view. So they could have killed these 3 even deeper into the block where we wouldn't have even been able to see them. But for some kind of miracle, as always happens on Djuma, these guys have managed to kind of deliver when, you know, conditions are at their most adverse. Something about this property that always kind of catches me is that they, whenever we need something here, whenever we're kind of struggling or we need it for some sort of big show that we're doing, you know, the animals seem to just step up and we're able to come away with something decent. So lucky in many respects is what's happening. But you can see the slow dismantling of this carcass has been pretty efficient so far this afternoon. They're now starting on the head, so you'll soon see the ears of the wildebeest, which is in the background there. Those will go. They'll eat the eyes, they'll eat the muzzle, the nose. Amazing, look at that. They're responding to oxpeckers. Oxpeckers have just flown over and are calling. Now, they know when oxpeckers call that it could be for prey reasons. So it could be wildebeest, it could be buffalo, it could be... And immediately they heard the oxpeckers, they stood up to look. Is there something here that they can still hunt? So even though they have food, they are so opportunistic that if something else comes and they know the conditions are so good at the moment for hunting, they will still try and take on if they can. It's a fascinating psyche that cats have, is that they will utilize any opportunity they get. And the reason for that is they just don't know when the next meal is. So rather keep killing and making the kills to feed yourself for as long as you possibly can, in order to absorb as much nutrition, than to pass up opportunities. And a pride this size generally should be able to defend most kills that they make. But I want to also just keep quiet for a second, not because the lions are feeding, but I want you to listen to the frogs. The frogs are starting to increase in volume. I'm sure by the time we finish this drive, it's going to be deafening. But I'll keep quiet and you'll be able to hear bubbling casinas particularly, and grass frogs as well that are calling at the moment. the almost popping sound is the bubbling casino, and the more kind of, I don't know what the word is, the sort of sharper ticking sound is the grass frog. And they're pretty common here. It's the plain grass frog that you hear. But we should, hopefully, I'm hoping over the next little bit is that we'll see a lot of bullfrogs out, maybe tomorrow morning. If not bullfrogs, I'm sure we'll see an increase in all of the other frog species. So, mottled shovel noses, golden leafs, water lilies, and my personal favorite, little snoring puddle frog. I love the little snoring puddle frog. It's a tiny little thing, and it makes the most amazing sound. It sounds like somebody's snoring. I'll play it for you now. I've got its call. It's such a cool little call for such a small frog. Hold on 2 seconds. Here we go. So it sounds like a little froggy that's snoring. It's one of my favorite calls. You don't hear it that much here, but after all this rain, we should have them coming out. There'll be a number of different frogs that will be around. The sand frogs, also tremolo, knocking, Natal, red-backed. They should all be out. So we'll just have to do some serious frogging, because sightings definitely will take a slight downturn after this. It's going to be a slow reopening of things. And so we're going to have, days where it's going to be quiet because we're not going to be able to access everywhere. Some of the roads will be closed for a while. It's going to be a kind of phased reopening of the reserve when all of this does clear. And that means that we'll need to use some of the smaller things at times, because we're not going to be able to get the same density and ability to find the cats like we have in the past week. So frogs, insects are going to become amazing. A lot of trees, grasses, wildflowers if the sun comes out. So lots to look forward to after the rain. Plus it's going to be fascinating just from an ecology point of view to work out and show you guys the effects of what heavy rain can do, how it scours riverbeds, gets rid of all old debris that was there, even dams. It starts to wash away build-up that's been taking place, particularly where dams have silted in the overflows, how seep lines start to run effectively, how all the water actually ends up in certain places and in certain ways. Now, with the amount of rain we've had, most of the water is actually not going to stay on Djuma. This water is all going to disappear. This is pretty much run off. The ground is so saturated now, the water don't stay here. It will literally hit the roads, flow, hit these drainage lines and go and end up back in the Indian Ocean eventually via the Mulawati, Manyeleti, Sand River, Sabi River, and then down towards Mozambique, out of the Limpopo eventually, that way. So it's going to be a long course that it's going to take from the droplets that hit here, and most of that water will rush out because of how saturated the ground is now. There's not too much absorption taking place anymore. Pretty much all of this is just runoff. So the actual amount of rain that we have is not always how much will stay on Djuma. Because it falls here doesn't mean it stays here. A lot of it is going to be pushed away and moved down. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for some interesting stuff as we go. That's a bit macabre with that wildebeest head. So if you are queasy, I would look away. You can see the eyeball kind of sticking out of the white patch there where the skin's been eaten. Julia, you said these lions are very well hunting today. Most certainly. To kill 3 wildebeest in one hunt is no joke. They just got lucky that the wildebeest, got choked off. They didn't really have anywhere to go, and because of that, they just ran and clattered into the whole pride, basically. The few members that were actually chasing had pushed them in such a way that they funneled into everybody else, and it was all about lions just jumping and hoping and grabbing. And a few lions did miss. So if there had only been one wildebeest, that wildebeest might have gotten through. But because there was the 9 wildebeest and they ran through all of the lions, a whole bunch were unfortunately snapped up and eaten. Hello, girl. This is the blind-eyed female. You can see there. Her and the wildebeest are sporting a very similar look in terms of eye at the moment. She, although a lot more alive than a wildebeest at this stage. Shame, I always feel sorry for these animals. It's never a nice thing, when something like this happens. I always say this about kills too. A lot of people kind of are quite, I don't know if the word bloodthirsty is it, but they always come on a safari and want to see a kill. And you kind of, most of the people that are lucky enough to see it, which is very few of the ones that actually do make it on a safari, will walk away with the sense of maybe it's not as cool as they originally thought. Watching an animal's life being taken is a traumatic one. I spoke about it earlier. It's not something that you take lightly, and definitely not something that people should celebrate. While it's amazing to watch the process and watch the hunt, the actual end of the animal's life is always a sad one. Can you imagine if it was you and your family and you were chased through long grass and grabbed by lions? It's not a pleasant thing to go through at all. But it is nature, and that is how things work, and there's a constant game of chess that takes place, and for every 3 wildebeest that this pride grabs, you probably find there's 10 or 20 of them that have gotten away through the course of the last few weeks. They don't always get it right. Today is just a bumper day for them. It's been a long time though since I've seen multiple wildebeest kills like this in the Sabi sands, especially in this area. We don't see it as much because our wildebeest population isn't that high. So it is in that point of view, it's pretty impressive from these lions. But we'll wait. Now it's the time that the hyenas should start to show up. Let's see if we see any sign of them kind of making their way into this area.
To Djuma. We'll come back to the dam camp just 60 odd yards from the carnage of the Talamati Pride, and this hippo has finally stopped playing with his stick. He's being a little bit camera shy. There he is. Hello. You see the even level of the ears and the eyes and the nose. Perfectly adapted to allow this fellow to be completely submerged with most of the body underwater, with just the important bits up and about. There's some ripples from the right. What do we have there? We have a second hippo. A little bit bigger, the one on the right, it seems. I wonder if that was the one that was playing with the stick before. You definitely see the size difference. They're quite happy. No drought this year, everybody. Lots of juicy green grass being made available for the hippos. And they could essentially just feed on all that vegetation you see just above them on the bank. Amazing the contrast in the serenity of this watering hole, and not far away the chaos that has ensued this afternoon, as is the circle of life.
Not much has changed in the last couple of minutes. Wildebeest is just slowly but surely being decimated. I think you'll find that there's not going to be too much of the skin that's going to be eaten as yet. There's still so much meat on all 3 carcasses that can be eaten before they have to really resort to chomping down on tough skin. There's a female that's kind of removing a little bit of skin now off the one leg, just to try and open up that chunk of meat that's there. Once that's kind of lifted off and removed, so she can start to kind of feed what's underneath. Also, that meat will the skin now will be like soap after all this rain. It'll be super wet and difficult to chew, much easier to get stuck into the meat itself. Poor wildebeest. Shame, man. It's going to be crazy to come and check here when they leave, to see all the devastation, and see kind of what's actually left after this is all finished. Christian is 8 years old. What will the lions do if the storm comes back, and what will they do with the carcass? Depends on how heavy the rain is. If we get some really pelting rain, you might find that they'll just go in underneath these trees that we have all around us, in the small little bushes. They just go and hide there for a little bit. The carcass, they just leave it right there. It doesn't matter. The carcass can stay in the rain. It's not going to change anything. Sometimes they do drag the carcasses in underneath the bush, but that's more out of fear of vultures attracting attention to them than it is out of the carcass getting wet. But in the rain like we're having today, these guys unfortunately are going to get wet no matter what they do. So sometimes they just sit on the carcass and take it because, well, there's nothing else they can do. It's not like they can go into a room or, go light a fire or something like that. They unfortunately just have to get cold and wet and just keep eating, and the food that they're taking on will just help power their bodies to stay in good condition and not to worry too much about getting kind of too cold. And the sort of process of feeding is also causing, an increased metabolic rate, which is increasing the internal body temperature. So, feeding is going to help with the sort of processing of the rain. But the rain's not gone. It's not if the storm comes back, it's when more rain arrives. I'm so surprised we've had such a dry afternoon. We've been extremely lucky this afternoon with the rain. There's been a few little drops here and there. There's been some dark clouds that have drifted in bands past us with very visible rain that's falling from it. But we just, in the spot that we're sitting right now, it's somehow managed to evade that rain. It still looks dark though. To the southeast is still bringing heavy cloud. So, the rain will still continue today. And like I say, it's forecast to continue all the way until Friday, which is a while away. Maybe not as intense by tomorrow, but still quite kind of steady rain throughout the week, which will obviously lead to a very wet, very green, very dense Djuma by the end of it all. Absolutely loving the frog noises this evening. Spencer, I think you're going to find that they're going to start losing interest. You can already see the carcass in the background is not even being eaten on anymore. It's been kind of dragged and left. I think there's one line that's with that one. Obviously, the other one, I don't know how much is left on that. But because there's 3 carcasses, they're so spread out and so much has been eaten now, I think it's taking much longer than it normally would. If this had just been one wildebeest kill, it would have been finished long ago already. There would be nothing left. All these lions would have piled in around it. In fact, probably would have been even finished before we got here this afternoon to start our safari. I've seen fully grown male impalas taken by 4 lionesses, and that carcass lasted just over 3 minutes. Until there was just horns left. So when they get into a frenzy and there's not much room around and there's a lot of lions, it goes pretty quickly. But because of the 3 carcasses, it's staggering the amount of food that they're eating or amount of time that they're taking. See, the one is dragging the carcass in the back. It's got the horns and is busy pulling it. Where are you taking it to? I don't know why it's trying to drag the carcass away. There's no real reason to. But there's still a lot there. That whole front section is still very much on that animal. So the whole neck, shoulders. It's not quite as big as this wildebeest, but it's still got a fair amount of meat. And I would imagine the one that's further away, which had the least amount of attention compared to these two, would probably be even more on that one. So there's definitely going to be still meat, I think, tomorrow morning. If the lions don't decide just to leave it to the hyenas, I think you'll find tomorrow morning they'll still be hanging around here, finishing up little bits of it. The rate of absorption of meat is going to slow right down now. They've eaten so much that they're not going to be able to fit much more. And you can see the size of the tummies is starting to explode and expand pretty quickly. They're definitely starting to show signs of being rather full. Amazing. What a crazy afternoon. And, you know, in many ways, these storms, as much as they are destructive, they bring benefits to some too. So for now, it's quite destructive in the form of all the water that's kind of raging and erosion and all those things, but it will lead to new life, which will stop erosion. In the same breath here, massive storm has led to the end of a wildebeest, but also been beneficial for the lions in order to survive. It's pretty interesting complexity in how finely balanced it all is and how everything kind of fits together. Anyway, talking about fitting together, we're not far from where Stephen Falconbridge is pointing his dam cam, so let's send you across to him.
No, Tristan's not far at all away from me, and I've been watching the chat, and many of you are wondering why on earth it sounds like I'm in a bunker. Well, I'm in the final control, the old final control here at Djuma, working on the dam cam, and you might hear some funny noises. That is me trying to operate the mouse, which is the controls of moving the dam cam around. And I missed my co-pilot this morning. If you missed it, Tristan and I were co-commenting the dam cam from the hot seat, and it was really quite entertaining. So I am missing his banter. And he went out because the lions were very close by, and this is about the best view the dam cam has actually had of the scene the whole afternoon. So you would have missed all of the goodness and all of the glory of what actually took place with the wildebeest kills. And it seems as if, well, there we go, our views are finally getting lost. So the Telematis, 2 storms in 2 days, and they have successfully decimated what seems like at least 4 of the animals on the Djuma property. 1 waterbuck bull last night, a couple of our diminishing wildebeest population, which is getting smaller and smaller by the year. But as discussed over the last couple of days, when we get lots of rain and we get lots of tall grass due to the rain, we will see an impact of lion on zebra and wildebeest population. It's well documented. We'll see the buffalo herds getting stronger because of the conditions. There is plenty of vegetation for them. And because they get stronger, they get harder to hunt and harder to capture. And so the diet switch definitely moves across to lion and wildebeest, to zebra and wildebeest, who find it much more difficult to detect the predators due to the long grass. As you've been seeing, the long grass is everywhere right now, so it increases the lion's stalking ability, and both wildebeest and zebra are very visual sort of deterrents, and they like to be able to see what's going on. Passion for Africa, the long-term effects, I don't think there'll be any long-term effects. We have weather patterns, we have droughts, and we have wet periods. And what those do is there's a huge seasonality in these parts of the world where it goes from between 7 and 8, maybe 10-year cycles of very wet and very dry periods. And it is not the first time this sort of thing's happened. The last time was 2 years ago. There was a bit of a cyclonic event, but then heavy rains hit this part of the world in 2012, 2013, and then again in 2001. So that cycle keeps going on. It definitely regenerates the vegetation. It definitely has knock-on effects on the populations of different species, but these trends are very well documented. And the impact on the predators seems to just be quite balanced, but the impact on different prey species is definitely affected. But Africa in general, we're seeing quite a lot of people living in sort of low-lying areas in Mozambique and Zimbabwe being very badly affected by these storms. And my heart goes out to them, my compassion goes out to them. I wish them all well during these very tough times. And those of you who are sitting at home in nice, warm, safe environments, just send your prayers and condolences to all of those out there who are losing very, very much at the moment. Mozambique is already a country that's fraught with poverty, and something like this is not going to really help them out very much. Safari Zoo, there's no steps to increase the wildebeest population. I mean, through the Kruger, they're actually doing okay as a population, but it's in these sort of areas where there's an enormous amount of water and the vegetation tends to get quite dense that we definitely see a decline in their numbers. But wildebeest are not by any means regarded as a rare or endangered species. Definitely their numbers in certain areas over the years has declined. Many people who lived in these areas in the 60s would have seen huge populations of wildebeest moving through, but due to management and due to inclusion of water, and there's lots of water around, we've seen bush density, we've seen bush thickening, and that's led to changes in habitat and also ideal hunting grounds for the likes of lion. So by all means, we will see localized changes in wildebeest numbers, but the wildebeest numbers come and go. They had a bit of a boom during the drought where the buffalo took a big knock. Those of you who watched the show 4 years ago, you saw how our buffalo populations got decimated by white muscle disease, which impacted the lions, in fact. You didn't see the wildebeest and zebra being impacted too much by the conditions, but the buffalo were impacted heavily. Now the tables have turned, and it is a very well documented scientific study in the Kruger on how lions' behavior and predator-prey relations are shifted between those sort of three species with regards to how lions hunt, the conditions, and obviously when conditions are very, very suitable, buffalo herds get very, very strong. And although you'd think zebra and wildebeest will also get strong, it's not necessarily their strength or fitness that is at question. It's their ability to see. And hence the case today, 2, maybe 3 wildebeest were taken down in a very close area. That is to do with the vegetation. If that vegetation was short and very well cropped, those wildebeest would have seen those lions coming. And it's animals like these that will importantly crop the vegetation, but it's going to take some time. The garden service only works at night. Mindy, I don't think they will have trouble. They might have a little bit of trouble. There might be a little bit of slipping and sliding, but there's quite a few access points. And if anything, it's going to be better for them. If there had been a lot of rain and the water level was still low, you see above the hippo's head there, the vegetation is submerged. That means where the hippo walks onto land there, it's actually going to be quite stable. The vegetation is going to be holding the soil together. When the water level's lower, you've got exposed sediment, which means it's muddy and can be a bit slippery. So that, after the rain, can be quite tricky for the animal. But when there's a lot of vegetation, it makes it a bit firmer underfoot. I'll see if I can find you a little spot as an example where the sediment would be a little bit trickier for the hippo to go out of. It all seems to be getting covered up quite nicely all around, but there you can see the bank that's exposed. That is kind of like what most of the watering hole looked like before the water got full. And that sediment in the rains, that's why he's talking about us not driving around, because in heavy rains, those exposed areas are very slippery And even for a hippo with its very large feet, there's going to be slipping and sliding and going up and coming back. But the vegetation's purpose is to solidify and hold that soil and hopefully make nice entrances and exits for our hippos who need to go out. And so here we go. Those little patches over there could be a little bit slippery. The hippo will have some chosen routes in and out, and we would actually be able to see their tracks in the sediment when they do eventually emerge. Okay, well, as our camera turns to the right, if we kept going even further, we'd be able to zoom right into the back of Tristan's vehicle.
The dam is very, very full, and the hippos are going to be sliding and slipping all over the place tonight. It's going to be interesting also to see how much damage the ellies do over the next little bit. They're going to certainly cause a lot of mess with the amount of rain that we've had. It's going to be little muddy tracks all over the place from where they've gone through the grasses as they feed, particularly on the cress where the rulers are at the moment. I had to have a little chuckle just now. These lions have gotten to the point where they're so full now that when they lie down, they do the slight roll. So for those of you that have never seen this, when a lion gets to the point where it's eaten too much, and particularly this lioness that's lying on the road, she's got a nice little round tummy, and sometimes they miscalculate slightly which way they're lying. Now, generally, you're going to find that most cats would like to lie with their kind of head up the slope, or their backs up the slope and legs down the slope. It just kind of is more comfortable for them. But she was lying like that and has decided she needed to change position. And so she sat up and then she rolled, and her back is now down the slope slightly. But as she lay, because her stomach is so round, she doesn't just go kind of flat. She actually pivots slightly past the point of horizontal, and her kind of legs go up in the air, and she has to like catch herself from falling down the hill and kind of roll back. And it's just because the tummies are so full, they have this kind of like rounded pivot point that they've got to sort of balance out when they lie down. It's my favorite thing to watch when animals are that full. It's almost like those videos that were so popular at one time where it was like balloon animals, where they had those comics of animals that are inflated and kind of roll around all over the place. It's almost like that in many respects for some of these lions. They are full now, and you can see the amount of eating is just tapering off as we're going. It's literally one feeding on the carcass closest to us, one at the carcass sort of mid-distance, and one that's at the carcass far away, with another one kind of heading in that direction. So they really are kind of reaching saturation point, much like the ground. And I think you're going to find that they're going to start one by one lying down now. And they'll feed throughout the night as space becomes available and they digest and process. So they'll carry on feeding. But they are definitely going to be very round, very rotund lions come the morning. They'll be very happy too, I think, that they're not having to walk around too much in this wet, soggy conditions. They've got their meal, they can just lie up and take it easy. Alright, so we've been enjoying the sounds of the frogs here and the lions kind of feeding. Let's send you across to Tess. I think she's enjoying some of the sounds of nature herself.
Wow. Yeah.
Welcome back to andBeyond Ngala, everybody. I'm sitting at a pan system, and there is just an overwhelming amount of sound happening at the moment. It is unbelievable. Have a listen. It is incredibly loud in our ears at the moment. I can only imagine what it sounds like for you. But we have got a whole lot of different species of frog calling. and all at the same time. You can see some very dark clouds coming in. There's definitely a lot more rain coming in. I think that's why these frogs are so noisy. It's actually so loud that I can't hear myself think at the moment. Missy Mara, absolutely. We've got a very dramatic sky in the background, and these sounds are incredible. I think it's the loudest I have ever heard these frogs around me. And we're literally surrounded. They're on both sides of the road. And it's so loud that I'm actually struggling to hear myself speak at the moment. It's unbelievable. I can even hear some bullfrogs. Unbelievable. Isn't it amazing what one set of rain can do? It was completely quiet here 2 days ago. It was dry. And now all of a sudden, there's just so much life. And knowing that there's even more rain coming, it's just mind-blowing what a difference one day can make out here. I wouldn't even know where to begin trying to find each individual frog here. There must be, I feel like there must be hundreds of them. They're so loud. I feel like they're even coming from the trees. And you can see how fast the cloud bank is moving. It really is some of the most beautiful scenery I've seen in terms of weather coming in. And actually, a strange thing happened. I think with the cyclone coming in, a frigate bird, a lesser frigate bird, was blown over Ngala. We've got a picture of it, but we didn't manage to get it live. And it's very far away from its home. So for any twitchers out there, these birds are normally oceanic birds. You don't find them inland. And the cyclone must have pushed it. And all of a sudden we've got an oceanic bird at andBeyond in Ngala. And you can see why with such dramatic weather. The sound is just getting louder and louder by the second. Completely insane, actually. It's actually so loud, my ears are ringing. If you can imagine kind of closing your eyes and picturing yourself sitting here in the middle of the bush, just think about how deafening that sound is, where you literally can't hear anything other than frogs all around you, and it's so loud that it actually hurts your ears. One of the most unforgettable sounds or kind of experiences for me with sound. I think I'm going to sit here for a little while longer and appreciate this chorus. But what a special experience to have this as the storm rolls in.
Our first WildEarth Explorers competition has closed. And we have a winner. Congratulations to Chantal Sleep from Benoni in South Africa.
I felt totally overwhelmed for winning this prize. I will be taking my son with me, and I can't wait to share this experience with him.
Chantal and her son have won a behind-the-scenes WildEarth experience at the magnificent and beyond Ngala tented safari camp. The prize includes a 3-night stay and a chance to sleep out in the unique Ngala treehouse.
I would like to thank WildEarth for making this dream come true, and I encourage everybody to subscribe, to become an explorer, and stand the chance to win these amazing prizes, and so much more.
For this month, we have a brand new prize. You could be jetting off to Tswalu in the Kalahari for a 3-night stay at the luxurious Motsi Lodge. Open to all WildEarth explorers who have signed up before the end of January 2021. Terms and conditions apply. If you love to watch WildEarth, then we are inviting you to join our Explorers program. For a monthly subscription, you will have the opportunity to win fantastic WildEarth expeditions. Join our guides for a chat around the fire, receive weekly highlights from our shows, and much more. All the money will go to keeping these live safaris on air, which in turn allows us to escape into nature every single day. Have you been watching WildEarth and dreamt of being right there on safari with one of the guides? Well, now you can. WildEarth is offering you a chance to buy a ticket to dream. You or a friend can hop on board a live WildEarth show and join our guide on safari. The ticket is redeemable at any of our locations, anytime in the future. Only a limited number of tickets are available, so don't wait. Get your ticket now and start dreaming. Terms and conditions apply. In a world full of upheaval, we all need a quiet and safe space to breathe. A place where anxiety and stress don't exist. A place where life carries on as normal. Escape to nature with WildEarth.
Well, as you can see, all the lions have just popped up their head because 2 of them have just arrived and are playing. So you might have heard a bit of thundering in the grass. That's just the 2 that just arrived. There's a whole bunch of them now back around this gill. Just trying to count them to try and figure out where everybody is. We've got 2, 4, 6 here, 8, 9 I can see, and I know I can hear the others feeding in the background far up the hill. So it must be the other members of the pride there. There might be also 1 or 2 that's just lying in the grass that we can't see right now. But it's still slow feeding at the moment. There's really not a kind of intensity to the feeding at all. It's just slow gulpfuls of meat that is being forced down by various individuals. You're finding that some are more prone to kind of eating more than others. So generally are just trying to get through their kills. Still no sign of a hyena. I haven't seen a single one even approach this area. Nothing coming down the road. Maybe they've decided, no, it's too wet, we're not going bumbling about this evening, which would be a surprise because generally hyenas are always busy with something. And they normally come to this part, or kind of up this road and around this area at this time of the day. Often when it's hot, you find the hyenas, if it hasn't rained too much, they're here at the dam swimming in the little pan called Weatela Pan at this time of the day. So I'm surprised we haven't seen any sign of them, given, you know, that's the commotion of all of this. And the lions have made a bit of noise here and there. The hyenas most certainly would have picked it up from the den. Although, maybe not. Maybe with all the frog noises and the rivers rushing, the sound of them is drowned out completely and you can't actually hear them very well at all from that side. I don't know. I'll go, should do. The one hole on the one side, maybe not. The sort of southern entrance of the second den is quite low to the ground and possibly could have gotten some water in it. But the northern entrance, I think should be fine. I don't think you'd get water going that high up. It's also quite high up on the ridge, so it's It's not near the seep line. It's a little bit into the crest. There's quite a few marooners around there, so it shouldn't get too much rain there. Sitting on top of the surface, it should have all run off or absorbed and kind of come out further down the seep. So I think they should be okay. I don't think there'll be too much of a worry there. Also, most of those ones, bar the possibility of Intima having little tiny ones that we haven't seen, those ones will all be capable of enough to move if the adults come and call them and take them to another den. If they move back to the first den, that one is, the hole is very high up and should be dry in there, so maybe they just moved them up to that one. We know they do sometimes bounce between the dens, so maybe they just went up into that area and ended up taking it easy there. So yeah, I think they'll be fine. I'm not really too concerned. There's no real animals with cubs that we kind of high-profile animals that we spend time with that I'm worried about, really. They're all big enough to look after themselves. I don't think we need to stress. Like I say, Tandy's cub is more than agile enough to get out of the way, as is Kuchava's, as is Sabui's. If the one set of cubs that maybe could be a problem would be Luna if she's had. The last time I saw video footage of Luna, she was heavily pregnant. So she should have small cubs now, which would be only, they must be, if she's had them, would be anywhere between 6 or maybe 8 and 10 weeks, somewhere there. So still very little. They would be under a bit of a threat if they were in a drainage line. But we don't know if she even had them or if they even are alive if she did. You don't know kind of what's gone before. But all the other animals' cubs are at a point where, they should be fine. Now, Lauren, you're asking about lions and teeth when they are born. So yes, they have their little milk teeth or baby teeth when they're born. Tiny little ones. Very, very, very cute. Looks like little kind of white markings in their gum, with tiny little pointy canines, which develop as obviously they grow. Then those eventually kind of recede and they get their adult set of teeth. So yeah, they do have teeth when they're born. But more than anything, they have this little rough tongue. Poor females. Looks like they've gone to a kind of barber and have been shaved when they have cubs, because the little area around their teeth gets so worn and kind of so badly suckled on that it becomes very, very raw there after a while, especially if a female has a big litter. Some of these lionesses, if they get 4 or 5 cubs, it's a lot of little mouths to feed. It can often lead to, quite sensitive teeth after a few days of suckling initially, when the little tongue is still so rough. Anthony, what do we define as overeating? For us as people, overeating is when we eat to the point where we feel a little bit ill. With them, they'll eat until they probably do not feel pretty ill, but they know that they'll digest it. So, no, I don't think so. You'll find with them that they'll figure, they get to a point where they full and then they just walk away, and that's them done. So you don't see any sort of sign of them kind of getting that ill from eating. I've only ever once seen a lioness eat a buffalo, and she ate and then got up and walked and vomited straight away all the food that she had eaten. But I think there was a very good reason for that. It was the oldest Styx lioness. And by the point at which we were viewing her now, she had become so old that her teeth were like these little round pebbles. Her 4 canines were hardly visible anymore. And she was really struggling to eat. She would try and chew the buffalo skin, but her teeth were so rounded that she couldn't actually grip it. and she couldn't actually chew little chunks off. She was basically ended up starting to get to a point where she would just grab a mouthful and tear it and swallow whole chunks. And so I think that's what made her ill, rather than overeating. I think she was just eating big pieces of meat that weren't digesting properly, because when she got sick, it was all these big chunks of skin. The meat itself was kind of still attached in places, but it was really unchewed. So I think her stomach just couldn't deal with that, and that's why it ejected it rather than her overeating. But other lions, I've never really seen them on a carcass feed to the point where they kind of start vomiting and things afterwards. They might regurgitate in a day or two bits of fur and bone that they can't digest, but not, bits of meat. Ultimately, that's not the point of the game. They need every little bit of meat they can get in order to survive and stay nice and healthy. It's amazing actually how deafening the flow of water is. This water that's exiting out of the dam next to us is not flowing all that strongly anymore, but it is drowning out even the frogs to a degree, and it's making it quite eerie out here because I can't really hear beyond this little space around me. So there's a lot of frogs calling and the sound of water and lions chewing, but beyond that I can't hear anything. And I was talking to another vehicle that was here just now from the camp, and they were saying to me that there's ellies on quarantine, they heard hyena calling, but from here you can't hear anything just because of the sound of water crashing over that little road there. Is drowning out everything. It feels as though we're in like a little bubble here with these lions all around us, and a few frogs, a little bit of a river nearby. Well, it'll be an interesting night from a kind of perspective of where the hyenas do arrive. For those of you that watch the dam cam, Steve won't be operating it after drive, but it will kind of, I think the zoomies will continue to take over, and it'll be fascinating to watch what happens here, and if the lions do hang around until the morning, or if they decide to maybe move off. It's starting to rain now as well. No, maybe not. Looks very grey to the south all of a sudden. Alright, well, we'll continue to sit with our lions and see if any hyenas do arrive. In the meantime, let's change across to Steve, see what's happening on the dam camp.
Welcome back to the darkness of the dam cam, where the focus is a little bit tricky in the night. I do apologize for that. As the light switches, everything seems to change. Pretty quiet. I suppose you wouldn't be getting anything coming down at the best of times to drink in these conditions, but even more so with feeding lions nearby. We've got a bird. Renette, I'm thinking at the moment that it's about as full as it's been in a long time. When it flooded last year, we missed it by a few days because we didn't go out on drive. Oh, there's our kingfisher, catching some insects in the light. So it flowed last year, and it hasn't flowed any other time since I've been here. So I think right now it's probably about as full as it's been. You can still hear them calling. Nicanova, bill and beak are the same thing, really. It's just whoever determines how to use it. There's no real difference. Some people will say beak, some will say bill. There's not really any difference that I'm aware of. Often used independently of each other. The beak or the bill, often we refer to the beak. Really depends on the bird, I suppose, but there's actually no difference between it. They are the hands of the bird, the tools of the trade. This woodland kingfisher hoping to maybe catch a couple more insects for waiting chicks in the nest somewhere nearby. I haven't yet found one of the woodland kingfisher nests, but there must be one near and around the dam. Oh, he's gone. You can see the shadow as he flew off. He caught an insect. So 50 we have, and we've just seen a kill, everybody. The annual rainfall is about 600. I think Tristan was discussing it this morning. He's caught himself a worm. And we've definitely surpassed that. I think it was already 600 before the rains fell, and we've had over 100 mils since last night. So I don't know what it is total at the moment. I didn't capture the rainfall before arriving, but Tristan was mentioning it this morning. Was that a delicious worm? Interesting how I caught a caterpillar or something, beat it first and then swallowed it to soften it up. Beak or bill, birds have no teeth, everybody. So they need to sometimes smash their prey before ingesting. It goes into the crop where it's stored. It can be regurgitated for young at the nest, or goes from the crop into the gizzard, where a mechanical muscle sort of process grinds and crushes the food, and it comes out like that on the log. A little pile of poo. Constant process. Oh, off it goes again. Lebo and Djuma, we get the woodland kingfisher, the pied. I've seen the giant, but it's not very common. I saw it in Chitwa. You get the brown-hooded, the striped, the malachite, and the pygmy. So that is 7. And the grey-headed. Did I say grey-headed? 8. 8 kingfishers. Obviously, the malachite and the brown-hooded and pied are more related or more sort of associated with the water. And we don't often see them. So Chitwa, Djuma, and the surrounds, I will encompass that into the same framework. I haven't seen a giant or a pied on Djuma. I've seen them all at Chitwa. Much more permanent water. They are fish eating after all. They will also feed on small mollusks and crabs and frogs. But fish is definitely the order of the day. I hope I haven't missed a kingfisher out there. I do enjoy my kingfishers. Graham, flash floods, well, they happen, and there we go. There's something going on in the water there. That might have been a frog having some fun. Flash floods, animals just have to get out of the way, really. They will feel it coming. We were discussing it yesterday. Are animals aware of change in weather? And I'm sure they are. They definitely are able to move. Ooh, what is that? It's a frog. They will move up to higher ground, away from the dry, also the riverbeds, where there's chance of getting stuck. These wildebeest, I think, made a very bad decision today. But I think the lions were headed over to quarantine. The wildebeest would have been probably a little bit better off on quarantine. The grass, although it is getting longer there, is still a little bit easier for them to see. Okay, well, we're going to see what else is happening in and around the dam camp. Meantime, send you back over to Tessa, see what she's up to.
Welcome back to andBeyond and Ngala. So it seems we have avoided the weather thus far, but there's quite a bit of lightning coming in to my eastern side, which is my left. And at the moment, I'm actually coming towards the east of Ngala because we heard some lions calling. And we think that it might be those Birmingham sub-adults that are coming back in. So what I'm doing is I'm driving nice and slowly and I'm checking with the spotlight for any of their eyes reflecting back at me. And it's quite exciting watching the storm come in. We don't know if we're going to get caught in it or not. We're hoping we'll make it back just in time. But it certainly has been a very strange and wonderful day. And actually, with all of this rain that's come in, it's so nice and green. But the scents as well are amazing. I can smell all of the large-fruited bush willows. They've got a beautiful, sweet smell after the rain. And it's something that is actually very hard to liken to anything. But it's just such a beautiful smell after the rain. And I think everything just smells better after the rain. Even some of our smaller riverbeds here at andBeyond and Ngala are flowing. And it's so wonderful to see how everything is changing so much in one day. I think andBeyond and Ngala is going to remain green for quite a few months still, Duke. Because we don't normally get this much rain in a wet season, and we also normally only get it starting from now and carrying on for another month and a bit. For the first time in a very long time, andBeyond and Ngala had rain right from September in our spring. And so it's a lot more green and a lot more lush than it normally is this time of the year. So normally it's quite brown by the time we get to maybe May, June, and definitely July, August. And quite dry, but I think we might actually have a good chance of it still being green by that time, because there is just so much lush bush at the moment that it is so thick and so green. It really is stunning. It's definitely the greenest I have ever seen andBeyond and Ngala. But it'll be interesting to see how it changes actually compared to the previous years. I feel like driving around at night looks so different to during the day, even if it's the exact same roads. But I'm going to keep going like this. Hopefully I found those Birmingham sub-adults for you. But I'll send you back over to Tristan at his jam camp.
It does look so different. It's amazing actually how kind of turned around you can get at night by not paying attention because of how different it does look. You can see there's still the same lion that's been feeding for ages now. It just will not stop. The rate of chewing has slowed right down though. And I'm not going to lie to you, I'm looking forward to moving at some point from here, because the mosquitoes all of a sudden have come out en masse. I am being absolutely destroyed by mosquitoes at the moment. With all the rain, I think they're just coming off everywhere, and there's literally mosquitoes buzzing around us. I think I've already gotten at least 20 mosquito bites. The other thing about this rain is it's going to bring about malaria. We're going to have to be very careful about malaria for the next few weeks. Often after big rains like this, the malaria count goes through the roof because of all the stagnant water and still water that sits around in the bush. Anyway, the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and James, Richard, I hope you're watching, because I know you asked me this morning. You were saying about migratory or birds, rare birds being blown in by the storm, and it started already. There's been 2 massive birds that have been found, one of which we're going to have to try and put some pressure on our mates to the north at Ngala, because they got a frigate bird this afternoon at Ngala, I believe, which is absolutely ridiculous. Frigate birds are not supposed to occur in game reserves in South Africa. They are supposed to be well off the coast and nowhere near even the Mozambican coastline for the most part. So that's a major bird to see. I believe it was seen at Ngala. I just got a message about it now. And the other one that's been seen in the Sabi sands today is a sooty tern. They have been seen in the sands before, but again, it's supposed to be an offshore bird, very few and far between. But there's one at Ulasaba, there's one at Skukuza, one at Dagama Dam, and then there's, I think, another 2 or 3 that have appeared in the Kruger as well. So we must just pay attention. They like to sit on open places, so airstrips will be good places to look for them. Chitwa Dam Wall, those kind of areas will be good for sooty terns, so they might be around. But it's already starting, and I mean the cyclone isn't even kind of fully finished yet, and we're starting to see these rare coastal birds arriving here in the northeastern part of South Africa. So we need to keep a lookout. Once we start driving again, we need to start really paying attention to the birds that are around, because these super weird anomalies start to show up in random parts of the reserve. And that's the first time I've heard of a frigate bird in these areas. Let's see, I think it was Eric that maybe saw it. I'm not sure. The guys I see are sending a million messages a minute at the moment on this bird group that I'm a part of, all asking who saw it and where. So I don't even know if Tess knows about it yet, but maybe she does. I wonder if it looks like it was Eric that managed to see it, which is cool. So next time he's on, he'll be able to tell us about it. But that is a super rare bird. I'm not sure which frigate bird he got. There is a photo, but I haven't actually been able to download it yet. But definitely not supposed to be in the northeastern part of South Africa. That's most certainly true. I think it is the greater frigate bird that he saw. I'm not sure. I'll have to double check. Crazy. So not only are lions making numerous kills, but we also in for some rare birds if we pay attention. I think we're going to see a weird sandpiper arrive here as well. I'm pretty sure white-winged terns, whiskered terns, they'll be around. I reckon maybe we'll get, you never know, maybe a gull species shows up. There's actually a new gull that's arrived in South Africa recently down in the Eastern Cape, very close to where my family lives, which is a new record for South Africa. So, you know, with all the weather conditions we've got around, you start to see random birds arriving. So that's an interesting question, actually. You're asking me which has been my favorite pride of lions. I've got to think about this now. I mean, probably would have to say my favorite was the Salala breakaways. So that was the original tailless female, and the 4 kind of lionesses that make up the Mangan Pride now, or the adults for the Mangan Pride, or the oldest adults of the Mangan Pride. So I think they were my favorites. I really enjoyed them. You know, they were a struggle against all odds. They were here when the kind of Mapokos went on a sort of craze. They then had to sort of fight their way through the changeover of the Mapoko Majingalans, and that led to this female to kind of adopting you know, some of the youngsters and trying to raise them on her own. And I got to spend a lot of time with them. So I think that pride and the Charleston Pride would be my 2 favorites. A similar story. Charleston Pride aren't raising cubs to adulthood against all the odds, and just kind of fascinating to watch. I think I have a soft spot just because they had a struggle more than anything else. But, you know, here in this area, the Nkuhuma Pride is always going to have a place, you know, because of the amount that we saw them. And they also, too, have done some incredible things and bounced back. The Sticks are amazing pride. But, yeah, I think the 2 that really stand out are those 2 that survived against all odds and rebuilt the pride. That's why I kind of root for the Shimungwe Lioness. So, as I want her to rebuild and for the pride to come back and be a strong kind of grouping of lions again. She's doing her very best to make that happen. She's got a long way to go still, but if she can get that little cub to 2-3 years old, and then have another lioness or 2 lionesses in the next litter, and that lioness can have a couple of lionesses, very quickly the pride can be back to a strong kind of force. So, I like those things. I always like when an animal comes from adversity to make it. And so those 2 prides for me always hold a special place. The Southern Pride was also great at Blind Sands. I think those would be the ones that I would use. And coalitions obviously are a completely different story to prides, but maybe we'll get into coalitions in our next segment when we discuss who I liked and who I didn't.
Still driving around looking for the Birmingham sub-adults here at andBeyond in Ngala. We're coming up to some nice big clearings where I know that impalas and things like to sleep, so I'm hoping maybe the lions would be coming this way too. But it is a beautiful evening with the lightning rolling in. Seems like Eric, the same plan. There's actually a lot of noise out at the moment. Even over the sound of the vehicle, I'm hearing a lot of frogs, a lot of insects. In fact, the frogs were so loud earlier they actually drowned out the sound of the lions. So we only heard the lions after we left that area. So many frogs. How ridiculous is it to think that frogs can drown out the sound of lions? Very interesting to see how well the spotlight works at night, but when it's so thick it actually only gets up to a point, and everything looks so different that you actually almost double guess where you are. But it's one of the best things about being here is it's so unpredictable and every day is so different. But I'm definitely enjoying this search. I love being out at night.
Still kind of sitting with these guys, and I said I'd chat about coalitions. So I think favorite coalitions, don't know, be a toss up between the Majingilans and the Birminghams. I like both of them. They were pretty epic lions, and seeing them together. The Mapokos were great when they were all 6 together, but they did cause a huge amount of destabilization within our lion dynamics, and never really proved to kind of grow the numbers of lions. They were incredible from a behavioral aspect and from a sheer force kind of display that they had, and there's no taking away from them. They were serious, and they were probably one of the most fierce sets of lions I've ever kind of come across, but in terms of just rebuilding the areas and doing well, I think probably the Birmingham Pride for me. Birmingham Coalition, they were very, very cool. I thoroughly enjoyed them. I used to enjoy spending time with those 5, and then obviously the 4 for a long period that they were on Djuma. Sad that they disappeared. I was very, very sad when they decided to move south, but that's how it goes. Because a lot of the lions do head in that direction, particularly the male coalitions. Is a very, very kind of solid movement from the north. They slowly start to drift and they kind of head into the west pretty quickly. It's quite a common thing to see with the coalitions. You see it a lot. The Matimbas did the same thing as well. So I think that would probably be maybe the Birminghams if I had to narrow it down to one. I really enjoyed them, and I didn't get to spend as much time with them. I mean, I never get to spend much time with coalitions of lions. It's a little lion curse that I have. We've chatted about it before, is that whenever I go to a place, male lions seem to just disappear from that area, and they've been so dominant in previous times. Anyway, all right, well, it is that time. Thankfully the rain stayed away. Thankfully the Talamatis provided us with an epic sighting, all things considered. It was awesome that we could have Tess join us and have those lions up there with the little cubs. Seems like kind of considering the effects of the rain, we've done all right, and obviously Steve operating the dam cam as well. So from all of us, it's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully you enjoyed this afternoon safari, and we'll see you tomorrow morning on our sunrise drive.